All right, looks like we are live. I am 2 minutes late and gay today. Guys, please, if you are pouring in, throw me the like. I know most of you are going to enjoy this anyways, because you are regular viewers. So, I kind of threw the stream together last minute today. Not that I didn't have plans for it. I got it together in the last half hour. I like to have things up before then, but I'm just kind of up late last night, kind of got up early today. My big mouth had to talk too soon yesterday. I was talking about how nice and sunny it had been around here. And then suddenly, sorry, grab my coffee. Suddenly, it started raining. So if the lighting looks different in here, that's why. If I look a little yellow, I can maybe see if opening a window will change that a little bit. Yeah, maybe that's a little bit better. A little bit better. Because normally I have my bedroom light on or not my bedroom light, my bedroom window open if it's sunny out to get some natural light in here. Because I have a very low-tech, low-key setup, as I am not a tech guy. So, anyways, hello, Holly. Like I said, I kind of threw this together last minute, so just let me get settled in here. I was trying to be on time. But yes, I was saying, the weather has been very nice, and then I mentioned it yesterday on the stream, and then now it's crappy. And of course, because it's crappy, I had to sleep forever. I actually fell asleep on the couch, and then I came upstairs and slept some more this morning. So yeah, gooding, Dalhuck. It's May, long weekend here, always snows. Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't live that far north. Then again, I don't like humidity either, which this area is exceedingly humid, but it's not like Florida humidity where you can cut it with a knife, but it's still pretty bad. So I don't know. I wanted to go move to the mountains of Georgia, this little town that has about 500 people in it that my grandmother used to live in or around. Lots of lakes and rivers, pretty isolated. My wife doesn't want to move any further south though, so there's that. But whatever. West Virginia looks good to me. Speaking of which, I took a little survey earlier today too about the Joe Manchin. You know, he's pretty big time. It's funny. It's really funny how West Virginia, a state of only 1.8 million folks, and a state that has no towns, that even has 50,000 people in them, they have our senator has so much influence in that he likes to ride that line all the time. And it looks like Patrick Morrissey and oh crap, I can't think of the other guy's name off the top of my head. But basically, our state's attorney and another gentleman are going to be opposing him. So that would be good. I'm not really for regular Republicans, generally speaking. I like actually to try and primary those folks. I wanted our governor to be primaried, but of course, I don't want Democrats in because I know if a Democrat gets in, they're going to be horrible. In fact, the last Democrat I think I probably would have supported at all was Virginia's Governor Jim Webb. I probably would have voted for him when he was running for president if they didn't prop up Hillary, if Jim Webb would have made it through, because he was a rather moderate individual. And I thought, well, we'll have a moderate government. At least, it'll hold back a little bit. But no, it was Hillary versus Trump. And I was like, okay, well, can't do that. Can't do either one of those. Trump isn't proven to me. I can take a long shot, but and Hillary, of course, is a terrible, terrible, evil, murderous, what. So, Holly says, I watched Heaven on Earth with my 15-year-old this weekend, learned that she hadn't studied socialism in school. Had some excellent discussions. Thank you for sharing it. Well, hi, Shelly. Thanks for showing up. Yeah, well, Holly, we're going to keep watching it. We got about an hour left, not even quite. I think 30 minutes. So we'll probably finish it out this week. I did take the opportunity today, right before the stream, to rip it. I probably have a ripped copy somewhere else, but I ripped it in order to make it a little bit easier, so I don't have to worry about YouTube buffering and those kind of things. So I also watched yesterday's stream, and there was at some point, no, this was late at night. I was going to bed. This is usually when I watch the streams. I'm like, okay, I don't need to listen to myself so much, but I critique my what I'm talking about or looking at what I'm thinking, because I'm doing this as a impromptu stream of conscious, if you would. I don't make notes or anything like that. I just think of things and espouse them, connect the knowledge that I have. But I said something weird. I was talking about, I think I was talking about women, and I mentioned that working in the jail, and I was like, what was I even thinking? Why did I segue into that? That was weird. So, I don't know. You guys put up with me, though, so there's that. And obviously, you think I offer something of value, or you wouldn't be here. And with that, guys, please remember to like, share, subscribe. If you wish to donate, Entropy, DLive, Subscribe Star. Again, it's just a way to help my family out, but it's not necessary in any way, shape, or form. I'm highly compelled to do this. It's funny because we were talking about this. My father was talking about this yesterday when we were having Bible study at their house. And he was talking about that these that certain people in the scriptures were writing this. They were compelled to do so, and how that was the inner workings of the Holy Spirit, and not to be in any sort of elevated state of arrogance or anything like that. But I feel like that's kind of where I'm at, is that I'm compelled to do this. And since I've been doing the live stream instead of pre-recording, I'm actually enjoying it a lot more, because there's less stuff I have to do on the back end, and it's a little bit more free. I can interact with you guys a lot better. And I'll tell you what, I want to do it a lot more. I feel like I want to live stream like 3 times a day. That's a matter of time, of course, and won't be able to do that perhaps in about a month or so. So anyways, that's enough of me rambling while you guys pour in here. We are going to look at linguistics, critical thinking. This is from lifelessons.co, critical thinking. 7 linguistic tricks people use to deceive you and manipulate you. This is really important because you need to understand how things are falsely framed often. And I'm going to read this. We're going to talk about it, and I'm going to show you examples. And some of them are recent. Some of them are very relevant to the current news. But as we go through here, that's weird that it stopped there. Proof by Verbosity. This is Eric Michael Dyson, by the way, folks. This is in part why postmodernism is so confusing when you try to read it, which is why out of all of them, the only ones that anyone can recite or recall are like Derrida and I can't even think of the other guys, but very, very few of them are intelligible to read or understand, because it's a bunch of word salad purposely meant to make you think that they are smart. And I guess dark mode is not going to work with this website very well. So my eyes will suffer for your sake, people. So the first one here listed, well, I appreciate it, Shelley, that you like the live streams. Like I said, I have really been enjoying them. And, I don't know, like I said, I really appreciate you guys being here every day. Keeps me going, keeps me motivated, gives me some hope that some of the things that I say that you don't hear from a lot of people will spread, will continue to spread, and people will start to change the lens in which they view the world to something I feel is more appropriate and approximate of the things going on. And I'm one who would try my best to check my biases, my cognitive biases. Of course, I'm upfront with any political bias or ideological bias that I have. I don't really consider myself any sort of ideologue because my highest value is truth, and the pursuit of that keeps me from falling into ideologies. But ideologies are a useful tool for most folks. So anyways, let's get to this. It says the Kafka trap might also be called the SJW trap. Author Eric Raymond coined the term Kafka trapping in his 2010 article, in which he presented a style of argument that is common today with SJWs, but has its origins in the Trial, a book written in 1915 by Franz Kafka. Now, real quick, yesterday, PSA Stitch and Adam Friended were covering this this guy, Will, is it Will Reich or something like that? They were covering his conversation that he posted up for this discussion he had with all these critical race theorists. Karlin Borisenko did the same. I suggest you check those out and you see the mental manipulation, because this is exactly what I'm talking about. Now, I'm not going to cover them specifically myself. That's two different channels that did that do a pretty good job in general. I like those channels. So go watch them. I don't need to cover the stuff that they do. That's just silliness to me. I don't need to repeat other people's work. But you can see these linguistic tricks that they use all throughout this, right? And you could see how everything's about dominance and power because they're operating from postmodernism. So it says, in the trial, the protagonist is arrested and accused of serious crimes which are never specified. He receives no explanation or description of the charges, and his refusal to acknowledge that he must be guilty is what makes him guilty. The only way to stop his abuse is to admit that he is guilty. So this is literally what James Lindsay talks about in the Cult of Wokeness. That's a great article. Of course, James Lindsay puts out a lot of videos and great tweets as well. And he's been far more active than Heather Penrose, who actually cucked out, in my opinion, and voted for Biden, or Peter Boghossian. He's part of that little group that, got Mein Kampf submitted to a feminist journal. So there you go. What is the Kafka trap? In the Kafka trap, you are accused of being a racist, sexist, bigot, fascist, homophobic, transphobic, Islamophobic, misogynist, Nazi, Hitler, etc. And any attempt to argue, deny, or defend yourself is seen as proof of guilt. Yep, denial is proof of guilt. So what they've done is they've taken the logical fallacy of demagoguery, right, or ad hominem, and they have solidified it by saying, if you reject my premise, you are these things. The only way you cannot be those things is if you admit that you're these things. Obviously, that is circular logic and untenable. But this is what they believe because they're in a cult. There's always an answer. I've literally had friends, old friends of mine from high school, tell me, basically, they're like, think, all the problems are racism. Just think, Bill, think, man. It's like, I do think you're not. Obviously, all the problems in the world do not come down to racism. In fact, the bigger issue, which a lot of people like to point to, is class. Class has always been an issue, not because wealth needs to be distributed equally across all people, but because when you have huge class disparities, essentially one class rises up to the top to create the autocratic oligarchy, and the rest of everyone else becomes slaves. And then, of course, you get that delineation in the middle that Plato talked about of basically the protector class, the military arm of the elites. And that's what BLM and Antifa are. That's what they want for the federal police forces or private security forces that will be implemented by the very, very rich folks. So, anyways, let me keep going here. Yes, the basis behind white fragility. Exactly. Denial is proof of guilt. You're guilty until proven innocent. Any accusation of guilt is all that is needed to condemn you. Eric Raymond laid out various models of Kafka traps in his 2010 article, which I share here. It says Model A. Your refusal to acknowledge that you are guilty of racism confirms that you are guilty of racism. Right? We all know this, but this gives you, of course, a visual model and an articulated model of what is going on, which is important for you. It's a tool. I'm a little bit of a pragmatist, so it's a tool for you to be able to use to defend yourself, right? And you can very well switch this back around on them, which I tend to like to do. It tends to be easier through text. Often when you're speaking off the top of the head, right? You're not always going to be as quick-witted as you would like to be. And some people are, some people are just born that way. It says, even if you don't feel yourself to be guilty of racism, you are guilty because you have benefited from the racist behavior of others in the system. No, not at all. And it does not make me a racist or a bigot. Sorry. I would say that these people espousing these things, of course, are, does it need to be said? The Democrats are the real racist. I mean, yeah, generally speaking, there might be some conservatives that are, in certain areas. I've met one or two in the past, but honestly, I think their racism was pretty casual. It was like, I just don't want to be around certain people, certain ethnic groups. Okay. I don't want them around me. I don't want to interact with them. Okay. What's the big deal? I mean, people do all kinds of evil and immoral things all the time, and justify in any number of ways. But leaving people alone and having thoughts about them, not really a problem now, is it? The act of demanding a definition of racism that can be consequently checked and falsified proves you are a racist. This is exactly what happened with Will the other day in that little stream. In the very beginning, they had to go through and see if he agreed with certain things. And I think he was trying to be judicious and fair with them and trying to cede ground purposely so they would talk with him. But he should have stood his ground a lot harder, in my opinion. Either way, it doesn't matter. It is the craziness of the folks who were espousing critical race theory to him that is the more important thing, the gaslighting. Your insistence on applying rational skepticism in evaluating assertions of pervasive racism itself demonstrates that you are a racist, right? And this is all the stuff I said. You can't be rational. You can't think. That's whiteness. Being logical is whiteness. See, here's one of the first things you got to do. You got to ask them. You got to switch these things around. You got to say, well, do you believe that some cultures are superior to others? And a lot of them will say, no, maybe I'm wrong about this with the critical race theorists, but a lot of them will say, no, all cultures are equally the same. And I'd be like, okay, then, so whiteness is fine. It's little stuff like that. It's not that hard to get them because nothing that they say makes sense. And in the end, it is a blind faith religion. I am a religious individual. Could be more pious for certain. But I am for sure, into the faith. And one thing that I can tell you is that my search in the faith has always been about truth, and it's not about blind following. And I don't think that the Bible teaches that. I know modern Christianity teaches that, but that is just stupidity. Early Christianity was very rationally based. That's why so many philosophers, Greek philosophers, converted to Christianity because they thought they had found the truth. Now, there is, of course, an emotional component to that as well, because every relationship has an emotional component. So I'm just going to read a few more of these. I don't need to go through all of them, but the act of arguing against the theory of anti-racism demonstrates that you are either racist or you don't understand the theory of anti-racism. No, I understand the theory. It's exactly the same things that happened in Nazi Germany. It's the same thing that happened in Rwanda with the Tutsi and the Hutsis. It's the exact same thing that is going on now in China with the Uyghurs or the Falun Gong, because they got really good, tasty organs because they're really healthy, I guess. I'll get to that eventually here, the book, The Blood Harvest. Obviously, we won't be able to read a whole book here. But yeah, I do want to talk about that. Even if you do not feel yourself to be guilty of racism, you are guilty because you have a privileged position in a racist system. Really? Really? What was my privileged system? Now, see, Will in that video yesterday brought up immediately, and mind you guys, I haven't watched the whole video. I watched the end of it because I caught it after Matt and Blonde's show, and I caught the end of it on Adam and Sitch, and I rewatched it. I was talking to Osis last night on Discord for a bit, and afterwards I went and watched the Carlin one. That's the shorter one. It's only about 3 hours, so if you want to check that out, go check that out, because Adam and PSA Sitch, if you're not aware, do like 8-9 hour long streams. So skepticism about any particular anecdote, account of racism, or any other attempt to deny that. Oh, sorry, I got off track there. So what I was saying about even if you don't feel the guilt of racism, you're guilty because you have a privileged position. Will brought up West Virginians or people in the Appalachians, and how poor they might be. He says the hillbillies. Well, yeah. Well, they're not the only ones, though. I mean, there's a lot of inner city people. I grew up in redneck ghetto land in Hagerstown, Maryland, because that's exactly what it is. It looks ghetto in the downtown part and whatever, and it is. And there's a bunch of country boys that live around there too. So it's this weird mixture of urbanism and country life. Skepticism about any particular part, yada, yada, yada. In summary, you are now trapped in a circular and unfalsifiable argument. Exactly what I said in the beginning. No one who is accused can be innocent because the structure of Kafka trapping precludes that possibility. And that is from a quote from Wendy McElroy, who I don't know who that is. Maybe I should. Just accept the facts. All white people are racist. It's impossible for a black person to be racist. Okay. Here's another interesting thing within their arguments. If you are in the minority, you are not in power. So there was a thing on BuzzFeed a while back, this was a couple of years back, about how much white privilege do you have, or how much privilege do you have in your life. And of course, they did a video where they were having people race up, and there was this poor white kid that fell under all the things. He couldn't take a step forward, but he was still privileged. He had like no father, he grew up in poverty, all this stuff. Well, they also had an online test, and I took the test. And I took the test honestly. And I was extremely oppressed, apparently, as a white heterosexual male. I won't use their made-up word, by the way. That's a stupid, retarded word that was invented on Tumblr. Most of this stuff, guys, was literally pushed on Tumblr for years by, teen girls. Is just stupid crap. And then the Marxists really, solidified it as they learned to manipulate people. Of course, some of this comes obviously straight out of academia and the gender studies and African American studies and all the Marxist studies. It just should be what it is, what it's called. We should just have a group of classes that are just like, these are the Marxian studies, and over here are the classical liberal arts. Did you ever know, did you ever think about why they got rid of the term liberal arts and now they call it the humanities? It's because they know that the liberal arts literally means the free arts. It literally means the arts of freedom. they had to change it to humanities. They are very much into, manipulating the language because they understand the tool that it is. It's impossible for a black person to be racist, believe women, you're a rape apologist, gender is a social construct, blah, 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 blah. We all know these, right? Having shown how manipulative and psychologically abusive the Kafka trap is, it may seem almost superfluous to observe that it is logically fallacious as well. The particular species of fallacies is sometimes called Pantriston? I've never even heard of this. An argument from which anything can be deduced because it is not falsifiable. I'm going to have to look into that. Let's do that real quick. Let's look up that word and see if I can pronounce it correctly. A purposed explanation intended to address a complex problem by trying to account for all possible contingencies, but typically proving to be too broad. Okay. Let's see if I can get an audio on that. No, I don't want to play your word games.
Pancreston.
Pancrested. Never have even heard of this word before, but that's how it goes. So, notably, if the model A, Kafka trap, is true, the world is divided into two kinds of people. Those who admit they are guilty of thought crime and those who are guilty of thought crime because they will not admit to being guilty of thought crime. So either way, you're guilty. One of the first, or the first episode of the Ends Justify the Memes that we could get to stay on YouTube was about Curtis Yarvin, aka Mencius Malbug, the basically founder of the NRX movement, or at least one of the highly influential thought leaders of it. And it was about how all of this is exactly like a witch trial. And it is. If you put the witch in the river and she floats, she's a witch. But if she sinks, with a rock, whatever it is, then obviously she wasn't a witch. And, of course, we just murdered her, but she gets to go to heaven, so it's okay. Either way, the witch dies. As soon as the person is accused, they die. This is straight tyranny, folks. That's all CRT is. Critical race theory is justified tyranny. No one can ever be innocent. The subject must be prevented from noticing that this logic convicts and impeaches the operator of the Kafka trap. How to deal with a Kafka trap? If presented with a Kafka trap, don't try to argue or deny it because your words will be twisted and used against you. By the way, guys, if this takes a while to get through and the other stuff that I have, I will be here to get through it because I don't have birthing classes tonight, so I kind of hang out for a while. No rush to do anything other than, we got to get some bags packed. I had to put together some stuff last night, a bookshelf because we had to rearrange things, so we had to get a new bookshelf or bookcase, whatever you want to call it. There's always something, and I need to get back to finishing the garage because I've been putting that off for like a month now. There's always something though, right? Always something coming up. It says, in fact, any attempt to argue, deny, or defend yourself will be seen as proof of guilt, and SJWs and trolls might say things like, deny, deny, deny. There's no smoke without fire. Methinks dost protest too much. My advice is ignore it, and if possible, put the shoe on the other foot and reverse the accusation. See how they like it. Exactly. Call them a pedophile. A lot of them are. I mean, didn't old Kenosha Kyle smoke some pedophiles? Pretty sure that was the first guy. Let's see here before I keep going on. I'm looking on some of this chat. If I get too far behind on the chat, guys, I don't know what you're talking about anymore. Shirley says, being a racist, the test is like how to prove you're a witch. Okay, yeah, see, exactly, yes. I'm glad you guys are thinking along the same way. You could also build a bridge out of them. They weigh more than a duck. Pushed on Tumblr by teen girls and predators. Don't forget the predators. Yes, Sam, absolutely. Absolutely. And all this is about power. And all these people, by the way, folks, are evil. Like, there are those who are dumb, who are being manipulated, the useful idiots, right? They're still evil. Just because you're ignorant of your evil doesn't mean that you're not evil. But I have sympathy for them because they are ignorant and they're manipulated easily. They're not very bright. They don't know how to defend themselves against ideas such as this. But the people pushing this are wholly evil. 100%. And they know it. They absolutely know it, and they laugh at it, and they think it's funny. They do. The Kafka trap is a form of argument that is so fallacious and manipulative that those subjected to it are entitled to reject it based entirely on the form of the argument without reference to whatever particular sin or thought crime is being alleged. All right, so the next one. There's 7 of these guys. Proof by verbosity, that is, aka proof by intimidation. Now, this is exactly what folks like Eric Michael Dyson or any of those other people who are progressive, SJW, highly articulate, verbally sly folks, this is what they do. They dazzle you. And this is why the dummies believe them. They go, wow, they just said all this stuff. They just said all this great stuff. You know, there used to be an ode In Living Color, for those of you old enough to remember, which most of my audience is a bit older, so you guys probably remember In Living Color pretty well. And there was an old skit with Damon Wayans going around, and he was this he was like the jailhouse lawyer, as we call them in the business. And he's like, so you see, you have to proselytize to economize the adjudication of the epitome. What did I say? Nothing. But people buy that crap. They buy it because they're like, wow, he's so brilliant. I try to keep things simple here. I am verbose, but I'm verbose because I don't know how to shut up. It has nothing to do with me trying to use large words or try to use sneaky language. Proof of verbosity, aka proof by intimidation, is an argument that is so convoluted, jargon-laden, and unintelligible that the audience is simply forced to accept it or admit their ignorance and the fact that they can't follow it and don't understand it. This style of argumentation is used by experts, or at least wannabe experts, with a good vocabulary. Again, Eric Michael Dyson, go watch him versus Jordan Peterson. Nuance Bro, who I rarely catch anymore, but Nuance Bro did a great breakdown of this and actually, I think, had a transcript of Eric Michael Dyson's words in that debate. That is the Monk debate. Oh, I guess that was 3 or more years ago now, but the Monk debate between Eric Michael Dyson versus Jordan Peterson. Absolutely astounding. Dyson says absolutely nothing. He literally says nothing other than, you're just a mean white man, Mr. Peterson, because you're emotional. Well, sorry, guys. Some people wear their emotions on their sleeves a little bit more than others. It's one thing that I don't necessarily agree with. I told you I was talking to a pollster. We were talking about logic. And once you get emotional, you lose the argument. That's not true. Logically, that should be true, but it's not true. And just because you're emotional doesn't mean you're not making a logical argument either. You can be logical and emotional at the same time. But you cannot be overly emotional because logic will then go out the window. Unfortunately, people prefer emotion to logic because logic requires intelligence. It requires thinking. It requires sussing out things. And it requires you looking and examining yourself and saying, hey, you know what? I was wrong. I was a jackass about that, and I need to correct myself. And people don't like to do that. They don't like to be wrong. They don't like to change. It's just the way human nature is. Very few people ever change in life. And they don't change because other folks convince them. I can tell you that. That is not how it works. They have convinced themselves, and they decide that they need to make a change. When I was talking to Osis last night, it was one of the things we were kind of talking about. I was talking to, I don't know why it got brought up, but I was thinking about young gentlemen today, my soft spot for them. And and that they don't know how to deal with women, and dealing with women's actually rather easy. And I don't go about this to talk about it because I'm trying to glorify my past or anything, but I do have some sort of understanding or expertise. And I could say maybe I'm a better looking guy than some guys, whatever. I don't think I got girls because of that. I'm a little guy. No, don't get me wrong. I was pretty in shape. Not right now, not quite right now, but I had a six pack, that kind of stuff. Obviously I'm intelligent, and I know how to have fun and give a girl a fun time. And those skills aren't hard to get, but so many guys, they can't bring themselves to do any of those things because they think they're not being authentic to themselves. And that's exactly the opposite of anything I would say. I was completely authentic to myself. I was always honest with all of the women I had seen or whatever it was. But more importantly, they always told me how manly I was. My little, 5'6", 150-pound self was very ultra manly. And I mean, that was a very common thing that girls would tell me. You're so manly. You're so masculine. You're so manly. They are starving for that, guys. You be a man and women will flock to you. I can promise. But in any case, aside from that, we were talking about that. And I was saying, I kept drawing in certain women, like really bad women. There were certain types I kept getting. And at some point I had to look in the mirror and say, okay, the consistent factor in all of this is me. The problem in all of this is me. I'm drawing these women in. Ever since I was dating, since I was 15, nearly 16, always bringing in these toxic women. I think I had one non-toxic girlfriend. That was the girl I mentioned the other day, who's a sweetheart, but she's just not bright and just wouldn't last. Now, my wife today, something else. She's a completely different person than those women from the past because I fixed myself. I changed. But it took me to getting to a breaking point, and part of that change took me to falling to my knees and on my face and crying out to God, saying, God, I can't live like this anymore. I'm in your hands. You do what you need me to do. You do, or I will do what you need me to do. And my life changed. It's changed drastically. I'm having a little baby girl. I didn't think I would be married again. There was all kinds of stuff. My mind changed. That, my friends, is true repentance. That's what repentance means in the Bible. It's the changing of the mind. Do you think the changing of the mind is an emotional ordeal? Of course it is. But it's also a logical ordeal. So let's consider that. So here we go again. It says, this style of argumentation is often used by experts. I read that. Technical jargon in an effort to intimidate people into accepting it. And no one can argue with you because they don't understand your answers. And this is part of changing the language as well. A lot of these things have overlap. Chris Langan is probably the best example of proof of verbosity. I'm not attacking Chris. I like him. Here is an example of his cognitive theoretical model of the universe. All right. I'm going to try and read this, guys. In the cognitive theoretical model of the universe, or CTMU, the set of all sets and the real universe to which it corresponds takes the name SCSPL of the required extension of set theory. If you guys know what set theory is, that's mathematics. But the guy that invented it, by the way, went mad. So, and if you do set theory, you work with it, it is kind of maddening. It says the SCLSPL, which stands for self-configured, self-processing language, is just totally intrinsic, i.e., completely self-contained language that is comprehensively and coherently disruptively descriptive, and can thus be modeled theoretically identified as its own universe or refinement domain. Theory and object go by the same name because, unlike conventional ZF or NBG set theory, holistical infused sets and blah, blah, blah. I don't need to read the rest of this. He says syntax itself replaces ordinary set theoretical objections, syntax operators. Right, like it is written on purpose to keep you out of understanding it instead of simplifying it. Steven Pinker did a great video about this, a lecture, I should say. It's somewhere on the YouTubes. Steven Pinker did a great lecture about this and how people in academic fields like to be overly verbose, and why that might be. My thing is because they want to inflate their ego and exclude people. It is a very natural thing for humankind to want to exclude folks. And power often wishes to maintain itself, which requires the exclusion of others. This is also a part of the critical race theory, right? That they have power. They claim that they don't, but victimhood is power to them as well. But they do run the institutions. It is in our government, so they have power. Oh, speaking of which, just off the top of my head, Tim Pool had a good segment today about that because a guy sued and the federal government shot down some of Biden's stimulus towards businesses. And this guy was white, so he wasn't eligible. And the federal courts upheld that it was racist. So thank God for that. All right, let me read some of the chat here real quick so I don't get too far behind. Yeah, pedophiles are, it's MAP. Yeah. No, it's ultimate solution. It's funny, my ultimate solution, it works for commies and pedophiles. It works. No, I actually don't advocate for that kind of stuff, but I understand why people would. And trust me, I know my potential for violence and my emotions, and I would certainly not be too happy if something had happened to my daughter. Someone might, if not hurt very, might get hurt very badly, I should say, if something like that would happen to someone I cared about. But I would try to let justice take it. That is the law. As one great philosopher stated, stupid is as stupid does, right? Well, Einstein has a great saying, make it, or it's at least attributed to him. What is it? Make it as simple as possible, but no simpler. It's okay to be white in a college classroom and watch the pitchforks and torches. Yes, this is excellent. I am composing my video for 10 rules. Be precise with your speech. Camille Paglia also has a good podcast about the university speak on how, yeah. And I like Camille Paglia a lot. I really do, even though I think she's a little crazy, a little unhinged, but she's obviously quite brilliant and she's quite honest. And, I definitely think that she should have more influence on this conversation today because she's a very, very educated individual. Yeah, 9mm, it just works. I carry a 40, but that's just because that's what was at the gun store at the time. But sure. I also use 300 blackout, guys, as I've mentioned before. I mean, these are my cheap, what are these? It's like 130 grain, whatever they are, 147 grain, because they just take them right off of the 308s, neck them down and all that. Oh, my defensive rounds though. Anyways, really must have burned too much authority points. Not saying that it is racist. Would put the justice system on par with Snopes in terms of authority. Did you guys see the Snopes redacted its fact check on the Wuhan lab? I'm sure you have. It's ridiculous. So they said it was false, and it was debunked. The COOF never came out of Wuhan, not the lab, and now they've rebunked it. Now it's a viable theory again. It's amazing. It's amazing how zealots get away with the things that they get away with. All right, how to deal with proof by verbosity. If someone presents you with an argument, you can understand potentially a proof by verbosity. Ask them to simplify it and explain it to you in a way that a 5-year-old could understand. Yes, exactly. This was something that Deb, in that video over on Karlin Boroshenko's channel, that is it Cinco or Shinko? I always say that because Shinko is a Russian weightlifter. And you guys, if you didn't know, I have a lot of ties to Soviet era training because I was a kettlebell instructor and did Russian martial arts and got into all of that stuff. So, have read a lot of their training over the years. Was Pavel Satsouline is I'm not like I'm close with him or anything, but was a early mentor of mine. So, Horus dictum, horse dictum, I guess. Excuse me. This dictum is named after computer scientist C.A.R. Hor. I didn't even know how to pronounce this. Course would be OAR, right, guys? You have to forgive my dyslexic mind, but I feel like I'm calling this guy a whore. So let's see if I can get a pronunciation of this. No, we don't see it. Oh well. All right, well, this guy's a whore in my book. So there are two methods to software design. One is to make the program so simple there are obviously no errors. The other is to make it so complicated there are obviously errors, or there are obviously no errors. This applies to logical arguments as well. You can make an argument so simple that there are obviously no errors, or you can make it so complicated that there are no obvious errors. Okay, well, I don't know about that. I think the more complex things get, the more prone they are to break down. That seems to be the nature of entropy in this world. Just saying, simple things tend to work simpler. I was just talking about Soviets, or tend to work more reliably, I should say. Just talking about Soviets, that's why the AK-47 works so well. It's a horribly inaccurate gun, has all kinds of problems, guys. The commies think it's the best gun ever. It's not. It's just cheap and easy to make, and pretty reliable. Pretty reliable. But trust me, most of my Russian friends, unless they were Spetsnaz or something, and they're just accustomed to using the AK, they use AR, guys. They use AR. So Gish Gallup. The Gish Gallup is a style of argumentation in which someone asserts as many different half-truths and falsehoods into a short of a time span as possible. So assert as many different half-truths and falsehoods in a short time span. Rapid-fire machine gun style, knowing that their opponent has no real chance to debunk and refute every single point presented in the limited time given. Now, when someone does this to me, I say, no, wait. We got to take this point by point. This is also a way that people shift away the framing, right? They go towards red herrings, essentially. It's a way that they do this. You really have to. So when we had the idiot come on our show a few weeks back, some of you witnessed, right? The tank would not kick off. When he was on there, I picked up right away what he was putting down, and I saw every time he threw out a demagoguery, ad hominems, red herrings. The guy was a mess, and I was just like, all right, whatever. You guys saw it too. I'm not interested in talking to people like that, generally speaking. That is a swine, right? Jesus says, do not cast your pearls before swine, otherwise they will tread on it, and you as well. That is, they will take you down. These people aren't genuine. There's no point in engaging with them. Don't engage. Only engage in people who want legitimate dialogue. This is why I will never, ever, ever engage with the neckbeard Voldemort, who has a certain big bread tube channel. So the Gish Gallup is about the quantity, not the quality of the arguments, which is never good. It's about overwhelming people with as many falsehoods and fallacies in a limited time available. It is named after Dwayne Gish, the young Earth creationist who employed it. Many Gish Gallup arguments attack straw men and refute points no one made. Straw men are interesting because straw men aren't, sometimes people make straw men not realizing it, right? So you're making a false argument about the other person's argument, but you don't know sometimes if you are or aren't. You can only present their argument from your understanding of it, which is why in current trends and debates with people, the steel man has been kind of the way to go. So you try to steel man their argument, that is, make it as strong as possible, argue from their side genuinely what you think they believe, and then they can correct you. I think it's a pretty good way to go. And refute points no one made and are often full of point refuted 1,000 times, or prats, okay? But that does not stop intellectually dishonest debaters from presenting them as if they were sound and valid arguments, however. Yeah, and we're going to go through some of that. We're going to go through some of that completely. As I watched Tim's segment earlier today, he was talking about people talking about taking away your guns. I think that was in his other segment, his first segment he put out, and how he's arguing with somebody on the left. Oh, we're not going to take away your guns. It's just NRA propaganda. Well, first off, no one listens to the NRA. The NRA is an ineffectual organization, and no one really likes them except for FUDs, I guess, right? But two, if I made the same argument about abortions, right? They would go, oh no, they're trying to take away the woman's right to choose. No, I'm just restricting it at certain times. I'm not taking them away. I want you to have the right to choose. It's just can only be in these specific choices, right? It's the same argument. And these, again, are the things that you have to figure out. You have to learn to do on the spot if you are going to dismantle these things. And some people, again, it's not worth even trying. They're swine. Why argue with them? Leave them to their own devices. They will change when they decide to. Like I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but the lady from No Safe Spaces. She was on Friday Night Tights the other day, and or Lights or whatever it is, Nerdrotics, Friday evening show. I don't usually really watch them, but I'll check in on them. And of course, she's been on Tim's channel as well as his live show. But I didn't know that she used to work with comedians, and she was pushing critical race theory for comedians in Hollywood and stuff like that for a long time. So she was behind the scenes in some of that brainwashing that they do, that propaganda that they put out. And after 20 years, she realized how horrible and destructive it was. It happens, guys. People wake up. Karlin Boroshenko, same thing. Same thing. And she was brainwashed into thinking that she was going to go to a Trump rally and it might be dangerous. And she found out, oh, these are actually really nice people. Of course they are. People on the right don't act like people on the left. People on the left are a bunch of snob douchebags. And I'm telling you for certain, because I'm an artist, guys. I I grew up, chorus, drawing, painting, theater. I wanted to be a film director when I was younger. I write. This is I used to write a lot of poetry and like short stories. These are the folks I hang out with. I've written plays before. I've had works of art of mine when I was young presented in museums. So, which is a shame too, because I never see those again. Because the schools like take that stuff away from you, and they're like, "Oh, look at this." These people. I come from this background a little bit, and I'm a little bit sympathetic to it. But these people are generally douchebags. They're snotty. There's always the cool kid. It's like living in high school perpetually. And some people say, "Well, yeah, life is like high school." No, it's not. No, it's not. Now, work might be, depending on where you work, what level of pettiness your employees or your coworkers have. But all these crazy folks, let's think of Moldy Locks, for instance. Moldy Locks was a very pretty woman. You remember she was the one that got smacked down some years ago, and she had done like a porn. Well, I don't think it was a full-on porn video, but she had done some sort of porn after her SJW indoctrination, her brainwashing. Before that, she was probably just a regular, normal girl trying to find her way in life. I had this girlfriend that was completely destructive, but I was kind of like addicted to her because our chemistry, right? And she was this super mousy, feminine little thing. Like she was the most feminine girl I've probably ever met in my life. Like, I'll just put it that way. Always kind of like weak and frail, always on edge, always on nerve. So she went up to, there's up the road here, I can't think of the name of it. There's an all-girls school that's really big into agriculture, and she studied biology. She works for like a biotech firm or something now. But she went to this school. It's now open to everyone, but it was an all-girls school. They were pushing feminism. And before that, she was a conservative, more or less. This is an immigrant, too. She's from Peru originally. She basically went there, got indoctrinated because she had no strength within herself, no willpower, no idea of what her beliefs are. And most of us are like this in our early 20s because, look, guys, we just don't do a good job of leading our children and raising them, generally speaking, as a society. And she came out of there as a feminist. Like I said, she believed in feminism. We would get in arguments about it. And it was like, it's absolutely absurd. She literally believed, even though she liked to wear makeup and dresses and look pretty, she literally believed that was a societal pressure that men put on the women. And I was like, no, that's what gay designers do. Gay designers in the fashion world. Most men like curvy girls. The crap that feminists tell you women out there that men like is so absurd. Most guys just want a cute girl, somewhat cute, that they're somewhat attracted to, who worships them, who thinks that they're a good guy, that will be nice to them. That's all they want. A lot of guys have a much lower standard of beauty than you believe. All right, let's keep moving with this. I'm an hour in now. I haven't even gotten through the first article. Why the Gish Gallup is difficult to deal with. The Gish Gallup debating style seems impressive to the audience simply because there seems to be so much evidence on your side, seemingly much more than your opponent has. It puts the opponent on the back foot because they either have to spend all their time addressing the many fallacious arguments presented or ignore them and make their own case, in which case you can accuse them of lacking counter arguments, being unable to refute your points. It takes longer to unpack and refute a fallacy or falsehood than it does to assert one. And it's impossible for your opponent to counter and refute every point made in the limited amount of time allowed in a debate. Even if you counter some of the Gish Gallopers' arguments, they can say yes. But what about insert the 20 plus untouched arguments? Yeah, right. To an uneducated or uninformed audience member, unfamiliar with the arguments, it takes time and fact check, debunk, refute, etc. Right. And this is what happens. This is actually what university does. They just throw a bunch of arguments at you anymore. They don't teach critical thinking. That was another point in that video last night as they got into the idea of critical thinking. Will mentioned it, and this was toward the end. And how did they change that? It wasn't critical thinking, but they changed something, that critical theory, into that critical thinking. But again, it was just a manipulation. You have to be on our side. You have to convert or die, scum. Convert or die, infidel. Convert or die, witch. So, on-the-spot fallacy. The Gish Galloper can employ on-the-spot fallacies. One of the on-the-spot fallacies is a logical fallacy that occurs when a debater is considered wrong or even incapable of having an opinion if they cannot recite specific data or technical minutiae on some topic. The fallacy asserts that one must be an expert on a topic in order to discuss it. And again, this is stuff that Voldemort says. Voldemort, though, is so disingenuous that he thinks that, argumentation from authority is not a logical fallacy. It 1000% is a logical fallacy. You cannot argue from authority, guys. That's not the point of the Socratic method. You don't argue from authority. You make the argument based on its logic. The end. Now, you can agree before debate that certain knowledge, certain institutions, certain papers, whatever it might be, certain authorities are acceptable. Like if I were going to have a debate with you about certain authorities, I would point to God as an authority in my mind and biblical texts. And then I would say, well, can we agree on that? Now, if the debate's not religious, I could use that as a way to inform my argument, but I couldn't base it in that, right? And especially if you didn't agree to that. But this is, again, this is what all these folks do. How to counter the Gish Gallup. In a debate setting, I recommend addressing the audience first and alerting them to the Gish Gallup technique and to the fact that you simply don't have time to respond to every single argument. You may have 12 minutes on your rebuttal. You can try to refute every single point made by the Gish Gallup online if you have the desired time and energy. Otherwise, you can select their best points for rebuttal. I used to do crap like that. I don't anymore. It's just a big time suck, but that was the novelty, of course, of the interwebs. So doublespeak, we all know this one, but before I go into that, I'm going to catch up on the chat here. Oh, yes, the Beverly Hill Boys, the commie-in-chief. Yes, buddy, you know exactly what I'm talking about, Sam. And he will forever be on any of my channels referred to as Voldemort. And before and after SJW pictures of those girls Sargon had on an early episode of the Lotus Eaters was fairly sad to see. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of them are very pretty women, and it is very sad. I'm thankful for like someone like Lindsay Shepard didn't get sucked into it too much, right? Not that she's like the most beautiful girl, but she's pretty cute. And women, you should really, an opinion, right? But you should really respect your beauty, right? And keep it and cherish it, as well as your sexuality, right? And not just give it away to everybody. It is part of the feminine mystique. It's a very powerful thing. And it's also, generally speaking, what women use, bad women, to manipulate and deceive. But these girls aren't even into that. They're trying to turn themselves into freaks as some sort of sign that they're not part of the society. Now, again, I grew up in this. I grew up as a teen in this kind of thing where I hung out with all the freaks and geeks, if you would. Now, I was pretty, I hung out with every group, in high school. I pretty much was always a floater, but I did have my core group of friends, and they were all like, they're all like the druggies or the theater people. I mean, not all of them were druggies or whatever, but I did know people who were in high school. Some of them are going to private school, who were doing cocaine and stuff. I get around these people, and there was a big fad at the time with the Jinkos. You guys remember Jinkos, the big old giant jeans? I always thought they were retarded. I was probably the only person in my friend group that didn't wear them. But it's like stuff like that. So they all conform to each other to show that they're in this little group. It's a thing of solidarity. But what they're really doing is they're giving up their own personal individual identity and expression and conforming to the group. And again, this comes back to that false dichotomy of individuality versus collective. Well, we're both. We exist in both. We are a collective species, but the collective cannot speak for the individual. And individuals can speak for the larger group to some degree. But it is never a monolith, of course, right? So let's see. Sam said, I remember a girl I knew in high school came back after one summer with a few feminist rallies saying, I think women are just better than men in every way. Yeah. How? On the spot. Do you have a study to prove that? Right. Yes. That is Voldemort's thing, isn't it? Do you have a study to prove that? While he brings up, what is it? He brings up studies about co-ops in Uruguay. Now, I don't know what you guys know about Uruguay. I'm not an expert or anything, but their economy was not good under their socialism. I'm telling you right now. And he's like, well, this, let me dazzle you with my big words and my big brain that's, completely disingenuous. And he's a guy I might hit if I met in person. And God forgive me, I hopefully would not, but he's that annoying to my very soul. Yes, Matt, Jinko jeans. Anyways, let's keep moving, guys. Real quick, since we are an hour past, hey, please like, share, subscribe. The thing. If you guys wish to donate, you can do that on DLive. I'm checking over there real quick to see if anyone's over there. Or on Entropy. Now, sometimes you guys tell me these things aren't working for you. They seem to be working for me. So let me know if they're not. All right. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. George Orwell, 1984. We all know this. And today, commies try to say that this was not about communism. I can tell you, if you read periphery works around Orwell, it was 1000% about communism. In fact, it is known that he read Yevgeny Zamyatin's We. I know I'm always plugging that book. I'm plugging it because no one knows about it. And it's a really good dystopian book. And it's an easy read. And it's one of the first. It's one of the originals written by one of the old Bolsheviks who was exiled from Russia. So he read that the summer before he started reading in 1984. And also Aldous Huxley's A Brave New World was highly influenced by that as well, by the book We. Doublespeak is ambiguous language used to deceive and mislead you. It is the exact opposite of plain speaking. I don't like that definition. It is not ambiguous language. It is actually the twisting of the language, just as he put above. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. Just like communists think that communism is freedom, right? Freedom from what? Freedom from want, from worry, from hunger. Freedom from everything. Freedom to just go live your life hedonistically. It's like, well, okay, but people have to work. They have to do things. So in reality, what actually happens is it's slavery. It turns into slavery. It's the pillaging of the masses. And by the way, we will get to Bastiat here eventually. If we don't get to heaven and earth today, we will pick it up later on this week. So don't worry. We shall finish all of this stuff. The vampire economy, guys, I'm going to just leave off because, like I said, reading a book like that on here is just tedious. Hopefully it's not so much so for you, but I wanted to introduce you to some of the concepts and ideas that are being presented there. So, doublespeak is a language which pretends to communicate, but doesn't. It is a language which makes the bad seem good, the negative seem positive, and the unpleasant seem unattractive, or at least tolerable. It is language which avoids, shifts, or denies responsibility. Language which is at variance with its real or purported meaning. It is language which conceals to prevent or prevents thought. Sort of. Then yesterday I showed you that Professor Dutton video, the Jolly Heretic, that is. And he talked about how the IQ was going down, or would go down, will continue to go down as we prop up our society the way that we are, the more socialism we have, whatever else. That's where these things come in. If you recall, at the end of 1984, spoiler alert, guys, it's only been out for it's only been out for like 100 years now, but spoiler alert, if you haven't read it, at the end, the main character, Winston, goes right back after everything that he learned and rejects it because the authorities tell him differently. All this push for veganism, all this push for critical race theory, all this push for UBI, all these things are part of the dumbing down of our society. And that is, of course, in my mind, purposefully. It's speculation, but it seems very purposely. If I wanted to control you, if I wanted to break your spirit, I would feed you nothing but carbohydrates and water. I would deprive you of sleep. I would deprive you of light. And I would interrogate you regularly and I would gaslight you like Jean-Luc Picard and How Many Lights There Are, right? And that actually is a direct play off of the movie, or I believe it's the movie, an old movie, Gaslighting, which is where we get the terminology from. Crazy making is another way to put it. It says doublespeak is commonly used throughout the corporate world in banking and finance, the legal system, legalese. Yeah, it 1000% is. The laws are written ambiguously on purpose, unlike our Constitution, which was written very plainly. Have you ever wondered why there needs to be bills that are, 6,000 pages long that no one can read before they get passed? Have you ever wondered why? Yet the operating system of our government can fit in your pocket. See, I have a pocket Constitution right over here. In fact, I think I have two of them. They're pretty worn. So these are both from Campaign for Liberty back in the day when I was part of local leadership for that. So in any case, didn't have smartphones back then, guys. So this thing is pretty worn out. This is one that's not so destroyed. It's a little bit larger that I found, but interesting how these little things, these are two constitutions, run the entire government, but every law we pass has to somehow be thousands of pages. It says, of course, by politicians to avoid answering questions without directly stating they are ignoring the question. Well, no, that's not doublespeak. I'm not really getting his definition of doublespeak here. Ooh, watch a masterclass. Sure, we'll watch it real quick.
Time now for the ridiculous. And tonight there's a mini scandal brewing in Florida over campaign stop by Governor Rick Scott. 2 weeks ago, the governor was campaigning for re-election in Tampa.
All right. Maybe this will help. And this is why I ripped Heaven on Earth.
With a group of uniformed law enforcement officers lined up behind him. There you see the picture. The problem is it's illegal in Florida for public employees to participate in campaign events on the clock or in uniform, and an official complaint has been filed with the state. Now, as political scandals go, look, this is not Watergate. It's more of a bite-sized brouhaha. The question is, did the governor's office know if the policemen were on duty or off duty? It's really much a duty about nothing. But we want to show you how the governor is handling questions about it, because this is where the duty hits the fan. It's a great example of the time-honored political tradition of saying a whole bunch of stuff without ever answering the question, no matter how many times the question is asked. All politicians do it, but this really is a masterclass. Take a look.
Did you really think that all of those deputies were off duty?
I'm very proud that last week the police chiefs endorsed me. I'm very proud that 40 sheriffs have endorsed me. I'm very proud of all the support from the law enforcement. We're at a 43-year low in our crime rate. So we invite them to our campaign events, and I'm very appreciative of the ones that came.
But did you think it was a problem to have on-duty law enforcement there?
I'm very appreciative of both their...
Well, no. This is a very simple question. No, it's not a problem because I'm the governor and I need protection. But there you go. That'd be my answer. That's why I'll never be a politician. In any case, I'm not sure how this is an example of doublespeak. I think the author of this article got this wrong. But whatever. The four main categories are deliberately ambiguous language used to deceive and mislead you, euphemisms. Well, that's for certain. Crap. Examples of doublespeak euphemisms. Adult entertainment equals porn, sex, shows, strippers, or stripping. That's not doublespeak. Okay. I often do not read articles ahead of time. I saw this. I went through the list real quick, but I saw the points that he had. I did not catch that he completely got this wrong. This is what is this called? Why can't I think of English right now? Adult entertainment is a euphemism, right? Is what he just said. It's not doublespeak. It's simply euphemisms. Creative accounting, dishonest accounting methods. Okay, downsizing, right sizing, worker being laid off. Someone told me once, actually, someone that works for Libertarian Org, think tank, they told me that this kind of stuff is PC. The PC language is always around and always in bills, and these bills actually represent other things. But, he's a young guy. I typically, obviously, when I interact with these folks, we haven't been in DC a long time, guys, because, right, like, stuff's crazy down there. But when I interact with these folks, they're typically not. They're very bright. They're very smart. They've learned their talking points, but they're not that well read. They're not that educated. They really haven't sussed it out yet. And it's, again, what young children tend to do, what young adults tend to do. Collateral damage, unintended deaths and injuries. Again, it's a euphemism. It's trying to soften it. That's all. Ethnic cleansing equals genocide. That's not a euphemism. They both. It's a bad one there. Woo! Friendly fire. Yeah, well, what else are you going to call it? You're going to call it that big long sentence. When someone accidentally shot, killed, or injured someone from their own army. Yeah. Or crossfire. That happens. Jargon. When specialized language is used, jargon is just a way to distinct your culture. So there's a lot of jargon in the Marine Corps, like the bathroom is the head, right? We call them camis, not BDUs like they do in the Army, or just utilities. We say boots and utes. That is a run where you are running in boots, utilities. Stuff like that. The problem with doublespeak, as author William Luntz quite rightly points out, all who use language should be concerned whether statements of fact agree, whether language is, in Orwell's words, largely the defense of the indefensible, and whether language is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable, and to give an appearance of solid... solely... I can't do it! Solid did it. All right, whatever. Screw it. Brain not work, guys. Clear language is essential so that both parties understand what they are agreeing to. In any contract that you enter into, you have to understand what your obligations and rights are under the terms of the contract. This is why you always, in any argument, any discussion, need to define your terms, and you need to find out immediately when you are cross-talking. When someone is using terminology, often wrongly, because they don't understand the terminology. They assume it has a meaning that it does not, or they overemphasize the intrinsic meaning of the word, if you would. Excuse me. They're not talking to you on the same level, so you have to suss that out, or you're just going to talk across from each other, and you're going to keep talking past each other. You're not going to have things framed properly to have a successful, fruitful conversation. So how to deal with doublespeak. If you hear someone being intentionally ambiguous and vague in their language, and or if you feel that they are using doublespeak in order to deceive and mislead you, ask them to explain what they mean in clear and plain, simple English. So, real quick. It says, a doublespeak is language that deliberately obscures, disguises, distorts, or reverses the meanings of words. Right. Doublespeak may take the form of euphemisms. Okay. I'm going to go with the wiki on this. Not that wiki's always reliable, right? See, and this is what I'm talking about, though. I consider doublespeak something a little bit different. And this is what we do with language, of course. This is one of the reasons why it's hard to communicate with folks, because they have different beliefs about what words mean. He says, ask them to explain to you if, like, they're a 5-year-old, don't let them hide behind $50 words. Yeah, I don't care about the video. Weasel words. Appeal to an anonymous authority. Voldemort loves this one. All right, let me check in on the chat a little bit here, guys. Thane, some women have penises. This is true. This is true. But they're not genetic women, so I can still say that, can't I? Marx was just mad and was born too early. Penn Millerite said that Dancing with the Stars is purely misnamed for ratings. There are no stars on that show. It's his point. He says lots of things that are named exactly opposite of what they are. Or Penn Jillette. Yeah, I like Penn generally. Although he was on Rogan the other year and was talking about Trump, and I don't believe a word he says about Trump, even though I know Penn is sort of renowned for being a very honest dude. I just don't believe it. He's saying like Trump didn't like music and other weird stuff, and like who doesn't like music? I know it occurs on occasion, but in fact, I think he said Teller's dad was like that. Like that's something interesting, right? There's something wrong with someone's brain, I would say, if they don't get inspired by music or sounds. Like music invokes emotions. I was talking to Osis last night, and he was talking about how much he hates where he's at in San Francisco, but he's there for personal reasons that I'm not going to disclose. But in any case, he had said that he wished that, basically California would just go float off into the ocean or something. And I said, yeah, Tools, Enema. It's one of my favorite songs. Because I'm a rocker, guys. I like the rock. But the whole premise of that song is just flushing LA down the toilet. And it comes from a Bill Hicks joke. And that there's going to be an Arizona Bay. Maynard says that he'll see you down in Arizona Bay. There's also, if you don't know that song, a lot of profanity in it, just saying for those of you who may be of sensitive ears. And modern Marxists are just mad they were born before they have the luxury of Star Trek space communism, right? Well, Wes Waverland likes to talk about this, and I want to get him on our show, but I think he was in an accident a few weeks back, he was telling me. So we'll have him on eventually, and he's going to start up his channel again with stuff like that. Talking about communism, space communism, that is. Cult leader stare. Between this list of examples of doublespeak and the example clip, I'm getting the sense that whoever wrote this article is a bit of a left-wing hack. Perhaps. I would say this is more in line with that, but what I just looked up on Wiki says yes. But again, like Sam, that's our understanding of what the word doublespeak means compared to other people. So, I don't know. I mean, it's been a while since I've read 1984. I don't tend to go back and reread fiction, and I don't read a lot of fiction. So, anyways, sometimes people try to introduce anonymous authorities into a conversation in order to make their arguments or claims sound more persuasive or valid than they really are. Journalists frequently do this and use weasel words to put people on the spot by saying things like, it's been said that, they say that, people are saying. This is also framing. Statistics show, scientists say, right? The insurrection. Holly says she's excited for Wes's Star Trek series. Yeah. Unfortunately, like I said, he was in an accident. I mean, I haven't talked to him in a week or more, but he said when he's back up to par, he'll come on. So we'll probably talk about Star Trek over on the Ends Justify the Memes or something like that at some point. And I'll probably be a guest on his show on occasion. If anyone tries to use anonymous authorities against you to prove their point in an argument, you can simply ask them, who said that? Who are they? Which people? Which scientists? Which statistics, studies, scientists? You need to do this because a lot of people talk trash and are more happy to lie to you and to pull BS stats out of their butt in order to deceive and mislead you and persuade you in their way of thinking, or throw out data that conflicts with their ideas. And guys, I do this myself, but only when I see the efficacy of the studies. I throw out data when the studies are not well constructed. It's when you do that. You cannot look at a poorly done study with no controls, you can't look at that and say, well, this is true. And that's why I've railed against all the modern, all of a sudden new 2020 data that came out about masks and virus spread and whatever else. When there was only one practical study that was done in Denmark. There's one practical study that had a high amount of efficacy, and that was done in Denmark. And I'll say no more before I get yeeted, which is also insane that I have to hold my tongue to some degree, especially considering that things just flip-flop all the time. However, when you ask them to back up their stats or verify their sources, they can't do it. You need to question any anonymous authority that is presented to you. Negative pregnant statements. In response to the question, do you owe this person money? You might reply, I do not owe this person $1,000, implying that you might owe them $500, $1,500, or some other amount. Watch out for ambiguity in speech. And again, guys, I made personally, I dated a lot of manipulative women in my life. Again, I come from that kind of artsy background where a lot of people are very self-serving and manipulative. And I worked in a jail for a long time where everyone's trying to manipulate you all the time practically. Or at least I'd say 60% of the population. So I'm feeling pretty good at figuring this out when people start doing it real quick. I've had a lot of training over the years. Like in practical training, I would say. A thought-terminating cliche is a lazy statement that is used to shut down a discussion or a debate and to get you to stop thinking and stop asking questions. They're commonly used by intellectually lazy or intellectually dishonest people, especially in cults, New Age religions, or spiritual circles when they don't have a good answer to your question or a valid counter-argument to your point. So this would be like, oh, my faith, I just believe. That kind of stuff. It's cliche, it's stupid, and it's not logical. It's like I said, my biggest struggle in my youth with certain points that I was being told that of things in the Bible were don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, but no one ever explained to me why God said don't do this, don't do that. Right? That's important. The why is important, at least for thinking people. You know, if you're on the lower end of the high IQ scale, the why doesn't matter at all to you. It's the ignorance is bliss idea, right? Let's see. Matt said, is that tonight? What do you mean? Is what tonight? Rewatching TNG and getting primed up for realizing that Star Trek is pretty based, and I still really dislike the Crushers. Well, I don't know. Dr. Crusher's pretty cute, I think. But when I was growing up, I was always a Deanna Troi fan, of course, because I like the brunettes, generally speaking. Yeah, is what tonight? Wes was hurt, and I guess his show is delayed. Yeah. Well, guys, I was talking to him privately on Discord, so I'm just saying. I don't know the full scope of it. I don't watch Uzulu's stuff a lot. Of course, he's over on Uzulu often, if you guys know who that is. But Yiz is over there a lot as well. But I haven't seen him on in a while. I told him I'd pray for him, of course. And you all should too if you're religious, because I do believe he was in a bad accident. Thought-terminating cliches. It is what it is. It's just your ego talking when asking a valid question or challenging a guru or a spiritual teacher. Oh, yeah, that's just your ego. Well, that's just your white privilege talking, right? It's your white privilege. That's your white supremacy talking, your whiteness. You think too much. I certainly do. I have a right to my opinion. You sure do, but your opinion isn't necessarily right. Because opinions aren't facts, folks. Alternatively, that's just your opinion. That's just what you think. It's common sense. Everyone knows that. My favorites. It's common sense. Man, back when I was really into diet and fitness, I would talk to people at work about this. I'm talking about people who are obese, about that, like low carb diets would help them lose weight. Because they would ask me all the time, and then they would come to me and they go, Bill, why you're, you eat this way or that way. Why do you do that? Why don't you eat some cake, or why don't you eat these cookies? And I'm like, because I like being sexy, guys. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I I like being fit and having a six pack. I like to have a clean running body. And don't get me wrong, guys, I eat junk, but not a ton. My wife will get on my case. Like if I have ice cream on occasion, she'll be like, "You're eating ice cream?" I'm like, yeah, I can do that on occasion. Come on now. But anyways, these people would say that and to me, and they'd be like, "Oh, well, with your metabolism, a guy like you with your metabolism." I'm like, what are you talking about, man? Like my metabolism was great when I was a teen. Ever since I've been 20, and I'm serious about this, I get fat real quick. When I was in the Marines for a while, I had a buddy, his girlfriend worked at Subway. I used to get a free sub every day. All I had to do was buy a Coke or a sweet tea in my case. And she would give me a free sub. Hook it up too, man. I get a double meat and everything. And I got fat pretty quick from that. Wasn't PTing as much. I was the corporal of the guard, and I'd lead PT, of course, because I was a squad leader, but just not doing enough on my own, I would say. Not eating well. And that's when I first discovered that, oh, well, I actually can get fat. And I've had a beer belly before. I'm not too far off now. So people have these certain beliefs. And I would tell them, well, you need to eat fat. You need to eat more fat, eat less carbs. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Everyone knows fat makes you fat. It's just common sense. How is that common sense? Well, it just is. It's common sense. Explain to me. How is fat make you fat common sense? Well, everyone knows it. Of course, fat makes you fat. Okay, so you're a biochemist now. Common sense is biochemistry, right? Common sense is endocrinology. Common sense is based in science, or based in BS and nonsense. Well, generally it's nonsensical, right? It's just generally, I've been told this forever, and it's the accepted dogma. Therefore, the accepted dogma, if I can talk, the dogma that is accepted is, of course, the truth. That's never true, folks. It's not how it works. Truth is truth. Dogma is some other thing. Anyways, I'm never going to get through this article. I'm glad you guys like listening to me, though. Only God can judge. Yeah, that's a nonsense argument, too. Christ says right in the statement, when he says, do not judge, he doesn't say do not judge. He says, the measure which you judge, you will be judged by back. It's important. You can't do anything without judgment. My favorite statement is, don't judge me. How dare you judge? Well, you just made a judgment that I made a judgment. Did you not? Anyways, get myself worked up about morons. In an argument, you mad, whatever, who cares, blah, blah, blah. Don't judge. Yeah, that's my favorite. Don't judge. Well, you just judged. Right? It's the same thing with the, my daughter did this, broke it out, her freshman year? Yeah. Had to be, because she's only been in high school 3 years, and she just graduated. So, in any case, graduation is this weekend, and it's a drive-through graduation. It is stupid. It's ridiculous, but whatever. Because we've gotten rid of mask mandates here, and Maryland has, and whatever else. So, but they're still being stupid. Lost my train of thought there. What was I saying? Oh, when people say that there is no objective truth, they're making a statement of truth, right? I'm very proud of my daughter for being the sharp little cookie that she is. At 14 years old, stood up to her lesbian SJW teacher who was trying to indoctrinate her. I actually had to go in and talk to the lady. She called my daughter a racist. I was like, no. But you seem like a bigot to me. Deepity. Let's finish this article on deepities, I guess. A deepity is a statement that sounds deep and profound, but is actually trivial or meaningless. The term was coined by American philosopher Daniel Dennett. Actually, it was coined by the teenage daughter of one of his colleagues. A deepity is an apparently profound observation that is ambiguous. It has at least two readings and balances precariously between them. On one reading, it is true but trivial, and on the other reading, it is false but would be earth-shattering if true. That's a deepity. By the way, guys, I know I'm taking forever to get through this, but I do have some articles to show you some things that we shouldn't be that long. Up to you all. You can tell me in the chat. I can play some Heaven and Earth for a little bit. Before we get into that, we come back to this. But I don't have a lot to do tonight. I made chili last night, so I don't have to make dinner tonight. Like I said, no birthing class tonight because they had to cancel. We have to do it later in the week. So as long as you guys are here, I'll stay here. Until my wife barges in here and starts yelling at me, of course. Which is not going to happen, but yeah. DPT examples. Love is just a word. Oh man, that's what the pedos say. They're like, love has no age. Yeah, actually it does, because a young child, should not be having sexual desires. Now, I was, as a young child, girl crazy, but I didn't necessarily have sexual desires. But you know, I'm weird like that. I thought I was normal until I started getting around so many other guys, and I started talking to them. I'm like, oh, I have a stupid, ridiculous, hyper sex drive. Maybe I should have got to tame that a long time ago. I was really happy when I turned like 35 because it was like naturally it kind of tamed itself. Just a little bit. I've actually had buddies of mine tell me, like, I'm sure you all have heard of the expression of blue balls. I've had people tell me that's not real. It is 1000% real. I've definitely experienced it numerous times in my life. But I've had very good friends of mine. They're like, I always thought that was just a myth that guys told girls. And I was like, no, dude, like there's buildup and it hurts really, really bad. 'Cause of all the blood flow down there. So anyways, not to get so personal, but age is just a number. Beauty is only skin deep. All of those pseudo profound BS. So in summary, we have the Kafka trap, proof by verbosity, Gish, Gallup, double speak, weasel words, thought terminating cliches, and deepities. Deepities. Love has no age. Yep. All right. Let's look at the chat a little bit more. Matt says, actor who played Deanna Troy is woke now. Yeah, well, whatever. She's old too, man. But when I was like, a tween, when TNJ came out, and, just talking about what look, guys, I'm a high testosterone male. That's the bottom line. I just was driven toward women. It's like my goal and focus forever. So when I was young, Deanna was the bee's knees. A lot of it was probably that wig too, because I do like luscious hair. Let's say Coke keeps you thin. Yeah, that's because people don't eat when they're coked up or cracked up. Same thing. It's just different delivery method. Let's see. Let me switch over here real quick. Minimize that. That applies only to the cane variety. I guess, Sam, that was a joke you were making. I didn't quite get. About Coke, I would say, people still freak out when I tell them I do intermittent fasting. Dude, I've been living off intermittent fasting for at least probably since 2004, 2005, because I read Ori Hofmeekler's book, The Warrior Diet, back then, because I was all into the kettlebell stuff. And that was a book released by Dragon Door Publications. So got into it then. There's a lot of research on it. It seems like our natural diet Dr. Was it Panda Sanchin or Sanchin Panda? I always get it confused, get it backwards. But, he has been conducting a study on this for a long time with folks. I actually participated in it for a little while because it's through an app about your eating schedule and cycle. And they know that if you eat within a 12-hour window, you actually are going to have better biomarkers all over. If you eat in under 12 hours within about a 10-hour window, you actually improve your endurance. We are overfed and we worry about starving to death all the time. And most people eat literally for the pleasure. And, I mentioned about some of these people at work who were obese, talking about this. And often, like one of them, this one lady particularly, I got along with fine, whatever, but she always complained about these things and her weight. And she's like, I really don't eat that much. I really eat healthy. And she's literally shoving something in her mouth every 10 to 15 to 20 minutes. And we had a commissary that we were allowed to purchase from as staff. The commissary is for the inmates, but we could get things out of there and we got a discount. And so people go in and get all kinds of candy bars and chips and whatever else, and they're eating because they were bored. Or as they used to call it in the Marine Corps, geedunk. The old geedunk. The term common sense is is now irritating as follow the science and educate yourself. They all mean the same thing, though, Holly. It's all the same thing. It's an aphorism. It's a mantra to say, you're stupid and I'm smart, and conversation over. And that's what a lot of these tactics are, is they're just conversation enders. Only God can judge. That is in a man's... Yes, only God can judge what is in a man's heart. Judge the actions, not the person. Yes, sir. Only God can judge what is in a man's heart. But if you understand the scriptures in full, all that are in the faith, all that are saints, are to judge the world. Because Christ returns, right? There's the resurrection. And through that, of course, there is a period of time here on earth and where I guess Christ reigns on earth. And now this can be interpreted different ways. It's a little bit confusing and ambiguous, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, those of us who are resurrected during that millennial period, I believe, this is speculation, of course, on my part, but I believe that is a time for us to prepare ourselves to understand all of the intimate things that God could tell us in our new form, in our new bodies that we can't understand today. And then we are to judge the world. If you read, there are two resurrections and there is a second death. That the world is destroyed at Armageddon, that is Armageddon, right? The battle of Armageddon. And people are resurrected and judged by the saints and then finally cast into what the book of Revelation calls the second death, which is the lake of fire. Now, if that is annihilation or if that is a permanent place is a debate. And I favor annihilationism, but I understand either or. And Christians, people who espouse to be in the faith, but are not faithful servants, are said to be cast into outer darkness. That's scary, man. That's being alone with your thoughts the rest of your life, separated from God and no one else. Scary thoughts there. Because, guys, we are social creatures. Isolation is not something that is good for us. Very few people can handle it well. On that note, there was a really cool thing I saw. This guy, he lived out in the woods for like 15, 20 years by himself. No one knew he lived there. He just steals stuff in this community, and they finally caught him. The police caught him because he broke into a place. So there are some people that can. But even old Uncle Ted did not completely isolate himself. He had neighbors. He talked to people. So it's hard, guys. Let's see here. Holly's talking to Thane here. There is no objective truth. That is an objective. Yeah. Is that an objective statement? Right. Right. I like using and losing it. Yeah. Okay. You guys talking about apps and stuff. Beauty is only skin deep, but ugly goes to the bone. 100%. And I actually like makeup on women if it's done right, very subtly. There are just certain things. If you use it right, it pops out. A lot of girls use way too much, and they think that men like it. Most men hate it. But my wife never wears makeup. But she's got incredibly beautiful eyes, and you couldn't see them when she was on the show the other week. But they're pretty lovely. And when she does put on makeup, the rare times that she does, it really highlights and pops those out. So, but yeah, I like that she goes. Part of it's because she modeled when she was young, and she doesn't, all the stuff that they do to you, not good. But she kind of didn't like being prodded at and told how she had to dress and do all these other things. So I think, at least that's what she says today, that's why she doesn't really do the whole makeup thing. So, I don't know. Beauty is fleeting, stupidity is forever, right? Yeah, overweight people always say they don't eat much. Right, and the thing is, too, is the longest fasted study ever done was a guy who's fasted for over a year. I had talked about this around the new year, because I was going through, I usually try to do a week-long fast, including at least a 24-hour-ish dry fast. That means no water, nothing, every year at the end of the year. So, again, I practice intermittent fasting regularly. Fasting is actually a very good thing for you, but I covered some of these topics in that video a while back. I remember that part, interesting point of Revelations. I'll read it again. Yeah, the thing is, man, is you have to, Revelations is written in a literary structure that's called a chiasm. So it's it's got like peaks and valleys, right? And it actually repeats itself. So what a lot of people interpret Revelations is as event after event after event after event. Some of the signs and seals and the trumpet blasts and those things are actually a reflection of the other things already. I take a historicist approach, meaning that I believe that the book of Revelations is something that is unfolding over time until Christ returns. Most people in the modern church take a futurist approach, meaning all this stuff's going to happen at the very end of time. I have been wanting to read the very first interpretation, not interpretation if you would, but decoding of the book of Revelations. It was written in the 3rd century, I think, maybe the 4th. And it's very good and very much based in the Bible. And that's the other thing I really can't stand with a lot of people and how they interpret Revelations is they try to interpret it with nonsense. The book interprets itself. That is, the Bible, as Jordan Peterson likes to say, is the first hyperlink book. Everything connects to everything else. And yeah, I'm not saying I understand every ounce of all these things. There's a lot of stuff out there to get into. I think people don't really understand how Bible prophecy works either. They get a little too deep in the weeds with it. But what I will say is I have a general idea, and there is an intermediary place that used to be taught by the church that your soul or spirit would go. That is called Sheol or Hades. And there's a place called the Abraham's bosom. Again, you can read this in early church writings as well, as early as the end of the 1st or maybe the beginning of the 2nd century. I can't remember the author off the top of my head, but maybe I'll bring it up here in the future. And that intermediary place is the story of where Lazarus goes that Jesus gives, right? So this was a common belief at the time. And when you read books like On Heresy, which, I guess it's in my wife's office now because we moved a bunch of stuff around. But, no. I am wrong. Not On Heresy, Against Heresy by Irenaeus. He talks about the beliefs of the Gnostics in this. This is all about Gnosticism, essentially. And one of the things he talks about is the belief that the Gnostics thought that they died and went straight to heaven. And that's the common belief in the church today. And I know the passage, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. That is one passage that is called a proof text, and it does not hold up to the scrutiny of the entirety of the Bible. So anyways, there's your religious lesson for the day. Just checking up on chats elsewhere. All right, guys. So do we want to do heaven and earth? Before I get into some articles, let's do heaven and earth. Because this chair is hard. I've been sitting here for 2 hours and my butt needs a little break. So I'm hoping that this is right where we left off, or about where. Should be about 2 hours and 7 minutes in.
Died in the bloodshed. Some reports say there was thousands, others say hundreds. Probably truth is somewhere in between.
Guys, let me know about the volume and stuff. No, I'm running this through VLC because, like I said, I ripped it. So I can raise the volume significantly if it's too low, or I can lower it if it's way too loud. We're picking up here where it was talking about Tiananmen Square, and it's about to transition to other things.
Even though Deng had put down the movement for political reform in China, he soon ordered that economic reform resume. In 1993, the National People's Congress enshrined the term socialist market economy in the Constitution. Still, the Communist Party remained firmly in control.
Deng is a very complex figure. His stature in history will be examined, re-examined many, many times down the road. His end goal is not to dismantle the rule of the Chinese Communist Party. Never was. The Chinese reform, it was able to keep stability, but it has not really fundamentally changed the political system.
Deng and Gorbachev were two reformers who set out to rescue socialism. But they were on two different paths. While Deng focused on overhauling the economy, Gorbachev turned his attention to the political system.
Gorbachev, in 1987, did face a choice. He came to the point where he either had to retreat to essentially neo-Stalinism of the Brezhnev era and pray that there would be enough political stability for him to serve out his term, or he had to radicalize his approach. Nobody at the time, say early 1987, had any idea that this would lead to a revolution.
In a way, it had come full circle. Here, Lenin had revised Marx, Karl Marx, who believed that the proletariat was naturally socialistic and would make a revolution, and Lenin, who had a politics based on the absence of trust.
Well, this is why
and now
check
Gorbachev.
my streams. I just realized, guys, I didn't have this plan. Why didn't you tell me? Heaven on Earth break for Bill. Yes, Heaven on Earth break. Sorry about that. I didn't have the video up. And when I return, guys, I will be up here eating some chili. So forgive me that I have to be so unprofessional that I need to eat food. All right. Hopefully this is fixed. My apologies again. We'll watch this for a little bit. Got about 30 minutes left in it.
Flips and is completely the opposite from Lenin, and saying that we have to trust the people. Otherwise, we have no socialism and we have no Soviet regime.
Gorbachev now spoke often about glasnost, a word that meant openness. The Soviet people were now free to talk about subjects that had long been forbidden. The nation soon found itself awash in a flood of revelations about the crimes of Joseph Stalin. But glasnost didn't stop there.
Contrary to what Gorbachev expected, they quickly disposed with Stalinism. They started talking, they went back all the way to Lenin, who to Gorbachev at that time was an icon. And they quickly began to discover how unjust, how inequitable, how stupid economically the entire regime was. It was no longer Stalinism that was to blame. It's the entire system of one-party dictatorship based on the total ownership of economy by the state. Glasnost became it was a match, a burning match thrown in the pool of gasoline, and that all that's required was just giving it enough time to burn it.
General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate.
Under pressure from both within and without, the momentum of change accelerated.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
In March 1989, the Soviet Union held the first free parliamentary elections in its history.
A lot of communist bigwigs were just sort of kicked out. And some young faces, engineers, doctors, philosophers, journalists, suddenly became MPs, members of parliament.
But 1989 had only gotten started. Poland was the first domino to fall. Solidarity, the independent trade union, had managed to survive underground through the 1980s. Faced with rising discontent, the Polish communists finally gave in to demands for parliamentary elections.
There were free elections held, but there was a trick, which was there were certain seats that were supposed to be guaranteed for the government, which the opposition was not allowed to run against. And yet, it may be the only time in history that candidates ran unopposed and still lost.
Voters simply crossed the communists' names off the ballot. Meanwhile, Solidarity had captured 99 out of 100 seats in the new Senate. All the while, Moscow stood by in silence.
The Polish events had a huge effect on the Soviet Union. To see people like us doing something completely different, just standing up and opposing, that was something people couldn't believe. We couldn't believe it was happening on our doorstep. And in this respect, the victory of Solidarity-led coalition in parliamentary elections in June 1989 was something that started the final stage of the collapse of what was called the Eastern Bloc. Next year, the Warsaw Pact was gone.
Magyar Köztársaság!
Many of the Soviet republics began to assert their independence, while Gorbachev struggled to lay the groundwork for a post-Soviet Union of sovereign states.
I'm glad that you guys listen and don't watch, because I see Sam puts here, I was just listening, I didn't even realize. Well, yeah, the audio will play through when I have the other screen up, but not the video, so I have to cycle back and forth between those the way I have this set up, and sometimes I forget to do that. But this is why I need to eat, right? We were talking about intermittent fasting earlier. It's 5 p.m. here, and I have not eaten today, so there you go. But I got me some chili, got a little sour cream, a little cheese, some Yokoteco XXX habanero. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, guys. So they're talking about the fall of the Soviet Union. And I wasn't paying attention enough because I was talking to my wife, even though I have seen this before several times. But I know they talk about how the Soviet Union came to a peaceful transition. It was very interesting what happened. People just decided they would not fight, and they would quit telling the lie. And part of that, by the way, guys, my wife said when she went to Walmart earlier today, no one was wearing a mask. Now, there are no mask mandates. She said that she saw a few people. But what that tells me is that everybody around here that was doing that was doing it only out of compliance, not out of fear. Because people, if they were fearful around here, they would still be wearing them. Just like all the Karens that are out there complaining about people, even though they're vaccinated. I don't know. They're deplorables, whatever. Like the real deplorables, not like the people like me. Not me and Tank deplorable.
But a group of hardline communist aides had had enough. In August 1991, they launched a coup and put Gorbachev under house arrest. Tanks and troops appeared on the streets of Moscow. At the time, Konstantin Eggert was a newspaper reporter in Moscow.
Well, I rushed off to my editorial office in a city newspaper, and it was this feeling of, oh yeah, we know, here they come. We know what they're going to do. They're not going to spare anyone.
Then something remarkable happened. Hundreds of thousands of citizens poured the streets to resist. Many of the soldiers joined them.
When it really went, not with a bang, but with a whimper. Nothing happened. Just all these mighty armies, KGB, all those people held sway over the country for 70 years. They just hid. Just ran away. There was nobody to defend it. It was a system without defenders.
In the middle of it all was Boris Yeltsin, the newly elected president of the Russian Federation. His popularity had now eclipsed Gorbachev's. After the coup collapsed, it was Yeltsin who issued a decree that effectively outlawed the Communist Party. In the following months, the Russian republics voted one by one to declare their independence. On Christmas Day, 1990,
I need to make this statement that they might have outlawed the Communist Party effectively, but the communists are still very much in the Soviet Union, or not Soviet Union, in Russia. All right, so make no mistake about that. But they are looking for a third or fourth way, if you would, but not capitalism, not socialism or communism, but something else. Tank's more of an expert on this because he reads these obscure things about these things. But they are looking to form a different kind of economy. But the reality is, as I always tell you, is Russia is not a threat. Their GDP is not great. The standard of living is rising there, and people are getting wealthier for sure. But they still have a lot of internal infrastructure issues, and they're constantly warring with neighboring states, especially with Muslims. So keep those things in mind when you hear about stupid stuff about Russia. And also, Sam's comment, communist aids.
Mikhail Gorbachev resigned as leader of the disintegrating Soviet Union. The once fearsome communist power was no more.
When I think about the fate of socialism, and when I think about the fate of socialism in other countries where it still supposedly exists, for example, China, I always remember this 1980s experience in Russia. You go to a small corner, very quiet, and whisper there, freedom. And suddenly it echoes all over the place, freedom, freedom, freedom. And you can't stop it, it's like an avalanche. That's my impression of this era.
With the fall of the Soviet Union, the era of totalitarian socialism effectively came to a close. But did the collapse of communism mean the end of socialism?
The fall of communism at the end of the 1980s, celebrated at the time as a great victory for the right and for capitalism and for a defeat for socialism, actually, I believe, for socialism in the West, was a huge liberating moment. because from that time you were free of that contamination. You were free of that guilt by association. You had to be taken on your own terms, and that deprived the right of a major chunk of its armory.
Social democratic parties were making a comeback across Europe. By the late 1990s, they governed 12 of the 15 states in the European Union. But many of these parties looked less and less like the socialists of the past.
I do hereby declare that Anthony Charles Linton Blair has been duly
The most
elected
daring revisionist was Britain Tony Blair, who led the Labour Party to victory in 1997 with a landslide vote.
Not really. All he did was bring Labour back to a more fascistic position. That's all. Of course, as you guys probably know, Labour has been utterly destroyed recently. So
The party, as Blair recreated it, is a far cry from the party of Attlee.
We always said that if we had the courage to change, then we could do it, and we did it.
What we wanted more than anything else was to be back in government. And it seemed that Tony Blair would do that by making what amounted to a clean start. Many Labour Party people did not realise how much of social democracy he intended to abandon.
Tony Blair was born in Edinburgh, Scotland, and spent most of his childhood in northern England.
Well, that looks like a good place to stop that, and I'm not eating anymore, so. Has a good amount of kick to it. It's got my sinuses opened up. I only tasted it last night. I didn't eat any. So, let me write this down as I normally try to do. That way I can close this out. Alrighty. So again, we're moving into England and on heaven on earth there. So I figured that's a good place to pick it up next time. Probably if I play that tomorrow, that'll be the end of it. There's only about 20 minutes left in that. So let's get back to these oh, that sucks. Really wish I didn't have to do that. I could use dark mode on this. These might work. Aha. Let's get back to these linguistic tricks here. And let's look at some articles real quick. Some things I had pulled up. And then we'll finish off with Bastiat for the day, guys. So, this is a slightly older article from the Miami Herald. No, it's not the economy, stupid. Trump supporters fear a black and brown America. Really? So, we have the Kafka trap, proof by verbosity, the Gish Gallup, doublespeak, weasel words, thought-terminating cliche, and deepities. Let's see what we can find here. I have not read this article, folks. I just came across it, and I thought, yeah, this is the same old tired argument of the Southern strategy. It is non-existence. It's not about economy. It's not about industry. It's about suppressing the Negro and the Hispanics and the Indians and the Asians and everyone who's not white, because whiteness is the evil and curse of the earth. Please. Please. Oh, excuse me, guys. Hopefully I don't start burping a lot on stream now. And real quick, a reminder, please like, share, subscribe, and, you know, the thing. You can go to DLive if you wish to support Entropy or the Subscribe Star. Links are in the YouTube description. So, we're going to try something different today. Rather than pontificating yet again upon the motives of Donald Trump's supporters, I'll let a few of them explain themselves in their own words. Oh, is that what it is? It's their own words? You're going to talk about how deeply racist they are? Here then is Robert with a comparative analysis of the 44th and 45th presidents. President Trump has accomplished more positive things for this nation in less than 2 years than the last 3 have accomplished in 20 plus years. That's all an objective, literally an objective truth for the people. We know that with the economy going up, better trade deals, not everyone across the board perfectly gained, but we know that people got a pay raise, a household pay raise of about $5,000 annually versus about 150 with the 16 years prior. For 16 years. And that's insane given that inflation was off the hook for a while there. After the past 8 years of Muslim Marxists in the White House, this nation could not survive another dimwit in the White House. So this guy assumes that Obama was a Marxist and a Muslim, right? Therefore, the author assumes that he's a racist. Seems pretty simple. Could you please list one thing the dimwit party has done for the black people in America other than hand out government freebies for their continued votes? Yeah, I would agree with that, and so would all of the black conservative or black Trump supporters. The Blexit folks would tell you the same thing. Critical race theorists, they want to prop these ideas up and just keep giving people free stuff. What is here? What is here? Oh, supposedly there's a video to this, I guess. A bunch of videos in this. We're not going to mess with those. And here's Gary's take on the demographic change. America has a constitution which guarantees equal rights for all, and yet people like you, you hunger for change that puts people like me in the back of the bus. You seem eager to know what it would be like to be in the driver's seat. You need look no further than Zimbabwe and South Africa. I would agree. When people like you started driving the bus, the wheels came off. That's what terrifies people like me. I actually had a conversation in Frederick, Maryland, at a bar with a guy from South Africa about this, and spoke plainly to me about how he saw everything going on in the United States, all the SJW stuff, and this was years ago when most people still weren't aware of it. We're talking about maybe 2014. Told me it's scary as hell to him because it reminds him of what happened in Africa. And this was a white South African. So he had the privilege, if you would, under apartheid. But he didn't like that idea. He didn't like it coming out of here. Here's some guy that is smart enough to see that, recognize that, and of course, the Miami Herald's going to just crap on him. Will they be adding in the words of the CNN contributor Richard Spencer? Right. Yes. Who's not right-wing in any way, shape, or form, folks. Again, Nazis aren't right-wing. They're just not. Now, if the Nazi Party was established and they ran the government, they would be, in the fact that some other group might come in and say, we want to destroy this, we want a revolution, sure. But you always have to conceptualize these things within their proper framework. And as far as the left-right divide goes, even in Europe, the Nazis were left-wings. This column is presented as a service for those progressive readers who are struggling with something I said in this space. Namely, that I see no point in trying to reason with Trump voters. I first wrote that over a month ago. I am still hearing now, disappointed. They're at my refusal to reach out. So I thought it might be valuable to hear from people I've failed to reach out to. I'm sure some of you think those emails were cherry-picked and highlight the intolerance of Trump voters. What intolerance, dude? Like, seriously, I got 2 minor quotes here. What intolerance? President Trump has accomplished more positive things in less than 2 years than the past 8 years of the Muslim Marxist. Well, maybe he's being facetious, right? Who knows? Can't survive another dimwit in the White House. What are we looking at right now under Biden? and the dimwit party that giving black people in America, other than handouts, government freebies for their continued votes. Yeah, all that's true. That's blatantly true. Are you going to say Larry Elder and Thomas Sowell are dimwits? Because they say these same things. They might not call Obama a Muslim Marxist. I don't think he was a Muslim, although he's got ties with Muslims. I think he is just a globalist. And here we're talking about Zimbabwe and South Africa, and that we don't want to go down that route. This is intolerance. Again, real quick. Just the Kafka trap, proof by verbosity, Gish, Gallup, double speak, weasel words, thought terminating cliche, deepities. Are we seeing any of that going on here? Sam says, so far we've had communism plus Islam is bad. Also, palette swapped apartheid bad. These are great examples of racist. Yes. Yes. Well, I said it in the beginning. Who's the real racist, guys? Who are the real people who want to lionize and scumbags and make monoliths of collectives of people based on if they're melanated or not? Oh, I hate to tell you, folks, I'm a white boy, but I got melanin in my skin too. Of course, there's some Afro superiority groups as well where they believe that melanin gives them special magical powers. That's a reality. I'm not making that up. If you guys haven't heard about that, I'm telling you right now, it's out there. This column is presented in a service for those progressive readers who are struggling with something I said in this space, namely, they see no point in trying to reason with Trump voters. I'm sure some of you think those emails are very cherry-picked to highlight the intolerance of Trump voters. They weren't. They are, in fact, the representative sampling from a single day in May called by my assistant, Judy. You had 2 quotes, dude. 2. What are you talking about? Maybe there's more in the video. I don't know. It's still an article of faith for many that the Trump phenomenon was born out of the fiscal insecurity and primal scream of working people left behind by a changing economy. No. The economy wasn't changing. We were globalists. We've been globalist. We're extracting the resources of America, importing things because we're not building them here, and devaluating our money all at the same time while we're waging global wars, and people don't freaking like it. And I don't like it either. So let's not do this. Let's not do this little dance where you are butthurt because you didn't get your way, because that's all this is. But I don't think ever, I don't think I've ever, not once, seen an email from a Trump supporter who explained himself in the terms of factory or coal mine shutting down. What did I just say? They're talking about economics here, industry, what's good for America. America first, not globalism. I have, however, heard from hundreds like Matthew, who worries about immigrants, and Gerald, who thinks people of color have an alliance against him. They don't? What's critical race theory? You think immigrants could just nonchalantly come in? Who's a citizen then? Who dictates how our country is rolled? All gaslighting nonsense. Always from the left. Such people validate the verdict of a growing body of scholarship that says, in the words of a new study from the University of Kansas professor, some idiot and some other idiot, the decisive reason that white, male, older, and less educated voters were disproportionately pro-Trump is that they share his prejudices and wanted domineering, aggressive leaders. True. Not his prejudices per se. By the way, prejudice is good. It is. You prejudge all the time, I promise you. It's called a heuristic in science. Heuristics are things that are little programs in your brain that tell you to do this or that, or that, if I asked you what country is larger in population, is it Russia or England? You would probably know that via a heuristic, whether you know the actual number or not. And I'm pretty sure that it is Russia. You can fact check me on that. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So we know stuff like that based on heuristics. That's all prejudice is. You can overcome your prejudice rather quickly. when presented new information. And as far as an aggressive leader, they wanted an aggressive leader to fight back the aggressive leader. Obama was one of the most aggressive presidents in modern history. Probably since Reagan, really. Look at the stuff that he did. Actually, it's the same stuff that Biden's doing right now to journalism and of course, political opposition. Right? Look, I get it. That's a hard pill for those progressives who have kin or friends amongst Trump supporters. We love who we love, even when they or we are small, unkind, or disappointing. What? What? Small, unkind, huh? That's the family. That's what family is about. We love who we love, and we let no one make you feel compelled to apologize for that. No, I don't know. My scriptures tell me that I have to be willing to lose father and mother, son or daughter to follow Christ. So, whatever. I'm loyal. Don't get me wrong, to my family. I love my family, but I'm always going to go with what's right. And the default, as I always tell you, is the leftist progressive way. It is because the world is run and in charge and led by Satan. But at the same time, let us be clear-eyed and tough-minded in assessing what happened to our country and why. How else can we salvage it from the likes of a Trumper who says Trump was needed to get things back in order after the terrible job done by President Obama? This was 2 years into the Trump administration. We are, 4 months into the Biden administration? How are things going, folks? How do you feel about the massive inflation, the gas shortages, the closing down of pipelines, the stimulus that is racially motivated? How do you feel about those things? How do you feel about the utter lack of transparency in the Biden administration? The fact that the media basically are a bunch of sycophants for him. He wrote, "We're sick of paying welfare to so many of your brothers who don't know what work or integrity means. I hope you keep writing these articles and remind my white Christian brothers that we did the right thing and we need to reelect Trump." I have 2 words for those progressives who think it's possible to reason with that. You first. What do you mean? It's very possible to reason with that. He didn't say anything again other than white Christian brothers. Do you see all the framing here, though? All the nonsense? This is why I went through that article earlier, the linguistic tactics. I know you guys see these things. I know you get mad, but I'm not going to point to every linguistic tactic. But do you see how all that is framed? And again, there are videos in there that I'm not going to play. But this next one I am. Real quick, Sam said a few things. Obama gets accused of being a Muslim a lot because of deflecting away from Islam and ISIS terror was a big news regular story. Yes, but he did that because the Middle East must remain unstable for the globalists to get their goals. They have to justify their war making, guys. Sorry if I'm picking at my teeth right now. I just got something stuck there. So this is real professional show. Speaking of which, looking forward to attacks coming back after the end of this month when the agreed upon. Yeah. And that exactly it. So, oh no, it's going to be 9/11 we get out, according to Biden, which just allows ISIS to get mad and start attacking us. And then we can then justify, well, look, we have to stay now. Obama literally supplied ISIS, the entire organization, with our military equipment and armaments by leaving them behind and then telling the public, oh, it would just take too long to get them out. No, it really wouldn't. That doesn't make any sense. But if that were the case, you know what you do? You use thermite, folks. You burn the crap out of them. You destroy them. You don't let your enemies have those. Trump comes in, destroys ISIS within, 6 months? Just obliterates them. Yeah. Yeah, and Obama had no problem drone striking children, right? Or hospitals or any of those things. Embedding Biden attacks his back. Yep. At least the media did a good job with groundbreaking reporting on Biden's beating his granddaughter. I love the groundbreaking reporting of his little electric truck drive and how he's going to run over one of the reporters over talking about Israel. Like, can you imagine Trump saying that? What the media would do about something like that? If a reporter said, "Mr. President, do you have any comment blah, 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 about Israel? Do you want to say something about Israel?" Sure, if you stand in front of the truck and let me run you over first. Just kidding. That's what Joe Biden said. You think if Trump said that? Sure. Go stand in front of the truck and I'll run you over first. Then I'll answer all your questions. Could you imagine the headlines? Matthew 10:34 through 42, King James Version. Think not that I've come to send peace on earth. I came peace with a sword. Yes, but no. That's a proof text, Matt. That's a proof text that is taken out of context. A sword is something that divides, it cuts. So I hope you're not saying that, okay. Okay, but say, you have to compare that. I know that's one thing. Not to jump down your throat or anything. I'm saying don't use that out of context and to think it justifies Christians waging war, because some people do. But the rest of it's what you put. I come to set man at variance against his father, his daughter against his mother, and daughter-in-law against the mother-in-law. Do you understand this? Christ requires you to sacrifice everything. Again, Matt, I wasn't trying to jump down your throat. I just thought you were going to use that out of context there for a second. It says at Mario Kart. Oh, yeah. I never thought I would miss Cindy Sheehan. That name's familiar, and I can't remember who that is off the top of my head. Yes, about the family. Exactly. Yeah. I've just had a lot of Christians bring that up to me and be like, "Oh, see, Christians can fight and do this and that." And it's like, that's not what that text is about. He's talking about that it's divided. If Christians were to fight, when Jesus told them to bring the sword to the garden, the swords, when they bought the two swords, he wouldn't have told Peter to put it away. And he wouldn't have told that those who live by the sword will die by the sword. Very important. We don't seem to understand these things anymore. We saw child trafficking take a hit under Trump and Epstein go away, and terror. Yeah, man, that's other right. We had historic peace agreements in the Middle East. What's going on right now with Hamas and Israel? Yeah, I got it, Matt. I just got confused for a second. No worries, buddy. Again, appreciate you being here, man. I saw you yesterday. I hadn't seen you in a while. I didn't thought. Maybe I'm just misremembering. And of course, all of you know, like, if you go over to Discord, you can find me there. Or some you guys should know. There is a page on the Justify the Memes, or sorry, there is a link for a Discord there. We don't really have it built up in any way, but we do want to allow, you guys to talk when we're not streaming as well. And you guys can get a hold of me. I mean, I'm trying to be as accessible as possible. So that's how it goes. Anyways, let's get to this Mother Jones article. It says, leaked video, dark money group brags about writing GOP voter suppression bill across the country. Again, keep these things in mind. The Kafka trap, proof of verbosity, the Gish Gallup doublespeak, weasel words, thought-terminating cliche, and deepities. Think about these linguistical tricks as I play you this video. Of course, you all should know that Mother Jones is a garbage outlet, but regardless,
I'm Ari Berman, voting rights reporter for Mother Jones, with an exclusive new video from Documented about a right-wing group leading the GOP's war on voting.
I had one message for him. Do not wait to sign that bill. If you wait even an hour, you will look weak. This bill needs to be signed immediately.
You're watching Jessica Anderson.
We know that the fraud is real. We know that it can be proven.
These choices really show that the swamp is alive and well.
The left is using this basically as psychological warfare.
A former Trump administration official and now the executive director of Heritage Action for America, talking to top donors in Tucson, Arizona in late April. She's telling them about a meeting she had with Georgia Governor Brian Kemp just 3 days before the Georgia legislature passed a sweeping bill rolling back voting access in that.
It didn't roll back voting access. You hear the framing here. What was the company? Was it Disney or something that was pulling out of Georgia, right? To go to Colorado where voting laws are more strict? It's all absurdity.
The state legislature in Georgia got it done, and you can help own this and cheerlead this if you sign it quickly. Do not delay.
But according to the video, Heritage Action did much more than just advocate for the bill.
Iowa was the first state that we got to work in, and we did it quickly and we did it quietly. Honestly, nobody noticed. At the end of the day, the bill that Governor Kemp signed and the Georgia legislature marshaled through had 8 key provisions that Heritage recommended.
This leaked video reveals how Heritage is leading a massive right-wing campaign to suppress voting rights in key battleground states like Georgia, Arizona, Florida.
How are you suppressing voting rights, though? See, he never explains this. It's just the accusation. He never explains what it is, how it's being suppressed. He just makes blatant, wanton accusations, right? Linguistical tricks, folks.
In Iowa, just this year.
We're working with these state legislators to make sure they have all of the information they need to draft the bills. In some cases, we actually draft them for them, or we have a sentinel on our behalf give them the model legislation. So it has that grassroots, from the bottom up type of vibe.
While these bills are being sold as protecting quote unquote election integrity, the real purpose seems to be to help Republicans win elections. They plan to spend $24 million over the next 2 years.
It's to help Republicans win elections. How? By requiring voter ID? So what are you saying? That if Republicans win elections and there's voter ID and proper registration procedures, there's proper accountability, that you're not going to win elections? Why would that be the case? Why would Republicans only win election by requiring voter ID and certain registration laws and getting people off the books who are dead or don't live in the state or the county anymore? Why would that be an issue? Why would they only win elections then and Democrats wouldn't? See, this guy's a hack. He's a hack. He might be a reporter, but he's a hack. And what he just said was very telling. Hey, they're doing this so they can win more elections. And what he really just said there is we're not going to be able to cheat anymore. We're not going to be able to cheat anymore. We've been doing it for so long, we got it down to a science.
In Michigan, Nevada, Wisconsin, Texas,
Pennsylvania,
and beyond.
Look at that. That was a nice little thing that he echoed her there on purpose, right? For a little emphasis.
To, quote unquote, right the wrongs of November.
And we are going to take the fierce fire that is in every single one of our bellies to right the wrongs of November, to right the wrongs of the mistreatment against these men, and move it into other states.
The Heritage Foundation is one of the best funded think tanks in Republican circles. They write the policy, and their sister organization, the dark money group Heritage Action, makes it happen.
Okay, again, dark money group is a framing device, right? A linguistical device to make you believe that what they do is wrong and evil. There are dark money groups on the Democrat side, and they have way more funding, folks. Way more. Also, I'm not a huge fan of the Heritage Foundation. They're all right, but, they ain't perfect. They certainly aren't bringing America back to constitutionalism. I can tell you that in the long run. That's not what they're about.
From writing and advocating these anti-democratic bills to leading the effort to block the For the People Act in Congress, Heritage is weaponizing Trump's big lie to motivate their donors and their base to strip Americans of their fundamental right to vote.
What big lie? You all are opposing an audit right now in Arizona for an election that has already passed because you don't want the truth to come out. See, if you were an honest person, you would be like, hell yeah, I want that. I want Arizona to be audited, and I want to know the truth. And I know that my man, Joe Biden, won fair and square. Therefore, we're going to prove it to you. Nope. No need to prove it. No need to prove anything, right?
To read my story with investigative reporter Nick Sergey of the watchdog group Documented, go to motherjones.com.
Probably not, dude. You work for Mother Jones. It means you're a crap journalist, in my opinion. Just saying. So here we have something interesting. This is actually different, but I did want to bring this up because these same people that are putting this out, defund the police and all these other things, this crazy propaganda, the gaslighting, all the stuff that they say. Here we have a federal prosecutor, 34 years old, is struck in the eye by a stray bullet outside Brooklyn restaurant while bystander is shot in the foot as dispute between two rival gangs erupts in violence. But let's defund the police, folks. They're a racist, bigoted organization, and, these are the things that are going on. So this just happened the other day. This is probably not going to be really big news all over the place, but I did come across it. I don't need to stay here forever, but what I wanted to highlight here with this, and then I want to get back into narratives. I should have put this at the end of the show, but whatever. That the shooting occurred after an argument between two rival gangs turned violent, and there have been 490 shootings until May 16th, compared to 270 during the same period last year, according to stats released by the NYPD, meaning the violence has nearly doubled since all of the riots. And guys, for sure, again, speculation, I can't prove it, but for sure, in my mind, everything that happened in the media, as far as like Ahmaud Arbery and how many cases did they have to bring up before George Floyd? They had like two or three of them. But you had Ahmaud Arbery and all that, and then George Floyd and whatever else. All that was intended to create these situations, these riots, so they could get Trump out of office. I mean, conspiracy of all conspiracies that they manufactured the coup for that, which potentially is true. I mean, I can't say definitively, but seems like it. Seems like it. So anyways, you can go read about this if you want. I actually didn't mean to bring this up now, but hey, it's all good. So here's some straight reporting, okay? Yeah, the music suddenly very intense and foreboding, right? Indicated the scary part coming up, right? So here's some straight reporting from Christopher F. Rufo. There is no framing here. There's nothing. He's just presenting you information. This is how you do it. And the reason why I bring this up is because, again, this goes back to the critical race theory thing and what we are seeing. Now, there was a win in federal court. I didn't have the article pulled up, but Tim Pool did cover it earlier today. I think it was at his 1 o'clock segment. There was a win with some of this stuff as far as getting stimulus money, and a federal judge saying, well, that's racist. You can't exclude white people. Committee have written a letter to the Department of Education warning that federal support for critical race theory could violate Civil Rights Act 1964 as it promotes racial discrimination and hostile environment. Critical race theory is explicitly hostile to the American principle of equality, colorblindness, non-discrimination, mediocrity, and free speech. Now, the idea of colorblindness was poo-pooed on that video I was talking about, that podcast. Again, go check out Adam and PSA Stitch's show that they do on Sunday. They covered this yesterday. Or the shorter version over on Karlin Boroshenko's channel, with what's Deborah's last name? Is it Philman? I forget. Anyways, so here he's making an argument, but he's showing why. He said, we can defend this toxic ideology with the First Amendment, 14th Amendment, and the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This is the way, and so forth. So this is just a basic argument. There's no framing. There's no false framing. He's just saying this is what it is. There's no weasel words. There's no linguistical traps here, right? And again, this is kind of important news, folks, because this is what is unfolding. Now, I know this is from a few days ago, 10 days ago to be exact, but I thought it was important. All the framing that we've heard of course, the insurrection, to end all insurrections. AOC nearly died, guys. She wasn't even in the building, but she nearly was killed. Nearly. And of course, we know that someone was killed. I'll get to that in a minute. So here are the insurrectionists with the police. Man, look at that violent mob. Oh. And yet the media continues to frame it unjustly. But there was some violence outside. Granted, there were some riots, and some people did steal some property, and there was some property destroyed. The media told us, though, that there was no possibility that there were fake Trump supporters in the audience, and we know that is just not true. In fact, the same media hired the guy and gave him hundreds, or not hundreds of thousands of dollars, nearly $100,000 in payment for his video footage. Now, on the other hand, Taylor Hansen, who is an on-the-ground reporter, was there as well during the Ashley Babbitt incident and actually helped provide life support to her. But this gentleman right now, like first aid is what I meant, not life support. Right? Those are different things. Excuse the misspeak there. But this gentleman, John Earl Sullivan, dressed up like a Trump supporter, and we know that he is a left-wing agitator. And he had footage of Ashley Babbitt. And he says they were seized by the DOJ. Right, you'll never see them again. They'll never appear again. Because they don't want that getting out. And he would have released that footage had there been justification for that cop to shoot her. And if there had been justification to show how bad Trump supporters are, and two, if she was black. Except for the shooter was black, so maybe that doesn't quite work. I don't know. I know what the critical race theorists think about that. So the DOJ he can be seen on this footage inciting the crowd as he films. He yelled, "Go, go, go. Get this S moment" before he was shot. Let's see what's in the document cloud there. And meanwhile, we have this Antifa agitator just had $90,000 confiscated by the DOJ as criminal proceedings. The money was paid to him by CNN and NBC for his footage of Ashley Babbitt's death. This is like Martin Bashir meets Nightcrawler meets Bill Ayers. Yes, yes. And here's a report on the source of funds and multiple media outlets. Let's get those up too. I already have that cloud. I'm pretty sure it's the same cloud document. So this is the official document, right? From the DOJ. Now, I'm telling you right now, you're not going to see this, any of this, on MSNBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, MSN. If they don't hide it, they frame it. It's as simple as that. Warrant of seizure of property, forfeiture. Oh, they don't want to appear. Yeah, I mean, it's legal paperwork, guys. It's some of it looks like it's redacted, of course, for privacy reasons. Anti-Trump Capitol rioter sold footage for $35K to NBC and CNN court papers. And here he is. But, you know, that didn't happen. There weren't any Antifa guys that infiltrated. What is this gross thing going over here with Machine Gun Kelly, Megan Fox? What? Oh, jeez. Anyways. So finally, the deplorable patriot. I really dig this name. I just found this because I was looking for articles that covered this fully. So I've talked about this briefly before. I've mentioned it several times, but the Capitol cop who murdered Ashley Babbitt, identified as Michael Leroy Bird. You guys should know who he is. The media is still going around talking about a guy that had a stroke or a heart attack, whatever it was. The next day, a police officer was killed by these folks. They're still telling that lie. There's Mr. Taylor Hanson himself. By the way, Taylor Hanson was just on Eliza Schaefer's show, Slightly Offensive, the other week, I think, talking about this, talking about his work with the feds, trying to get them material. And then he decided, I guess, to stop working with them because they're, a bunch of SOBs, I guess. Last month, independent journalist Taylor Hanson made a surprising announcement. He had identified the Capitol police officers who shot and killed an unarmed woman, Ashley Babbitt, during the Capitol protest of January 6th. Now, this is highlighted here. Let me get my dark mode back on, and I'll bigly this some. So this is poor trigger discipline, and we're just going to do this. Hope I don't get yeeted. So good trigger discipline, this. That not as good, not as good. This, not good trigger discipline, right? So his finger's already inside the trigger. This guy had an itchy trigger finger, but he's also incompetent. See this guy down here? Good trigger discipline, mostly. I would prefer for most people to keep their finger up higher, but that's a personal preference. Because it is easy if you get startled for that finger to slip in there. Now, there are some Spetsnaz guys, Sonny Puzikas specifically, that I know that will tell you to stick your finger inside that and to press outward actively. I don't know about that. I don't know how battle tested that is, but sure. Anyways, the identity of Ashley Babbitt's shooter is Lieutenant Michael Leroy Bird. Multiple mainstream media outlets have known this, but they refuse to run the story. Why is that? Because this is a time when police killings were justified in their mind, right? Because it's always political. And the interesting thing about this is, as I've said before, it shows exactly how things will go when the federal police come to a city near you. Michael Bird clearly has no trigger discipline and was pointing his firearm at his colleagues directly prior to gunning down Ashley Babbitt. That's right. He should be in the high ready right there. So low ready, high ready, right? He should be in the high ready. So I guess this is yeah, and he's the commander of the House chamber. So he's like in charge of the security there, is what it sounds like. Here he is sticking his arm through a door. And that's how she got shot. In this composite, you can clearly see that his pistol in Lieutenant Boyd's hand on the House floor is the same type of Glock Model 20 that was used to murder Ashley Babbitt, and the bracelet he is wearing also matches. According to Hansen, the picture on the left was taken from Michael Bird's Lincoln. He has since been almost completely scrubbed from the internet. It's also worth noting all the major media outlets, including FNC, Newsmax, etc., has had access to this information and done nothing with it. Those of you who think those groups are, the best, that those are the best casts. I'm not crapping on any network per se, but just saying that mainstream media You can get information there, but they don't tell you the important details often, right? It says, we couldn't confirm the shooter's identity in these allegations, but we do know this. Michael Byrd is currently not working and is not staying at his residence either. I showed it sometime a while ago on here. I saw the paperwork where he was acquitted of all charges. There were no charges against him. They did an internal investigation and were like, no, it was a good shoot. He saved AOC's life, even though she wasn't in the building. Also, this isn't the first time that Lieutenant Michael Byrd has been involved in a situation where he made headlines after getting in trouble. And this, my friends, this is it. According to Fox News, back in 2019, a U.S. Capitol Police officer was under review after somehow he left his Glock 22 pistol inside the bathroom of the structure's visitor center. Man, that would have been a good day for me to be at the Capitol building. I'd love to have a new Glock. Lieutenant Michael Byrd forgot to take the weapon with him upon leaving the restroom, and it was found during a routine security sweep later in the day, official told Roll Call. This is absurd incompetence. That guy should have been fired. Fired. This is federal policing. I worked for a little rinky-dinky rural county sheriff's department. I'd have been fired for this. Well, maybe I wouldn't have if I was one of the good old boys, but I don't play that crap. I don't kiss anyone's butt. The department takes these matters very seriously and has a very thorough process to investigate and review incidents such as these, and holds personnel accountable for their actions. No, they don't. They do not. I dated a girl that did this stuff. She was uniformed, but she wasn't, undercover like those guys. But I dated a girl that worked in the Capitol briefly. Little Filipino girl. I would not be concerned about her ability to do anything other than pull a gun on you and shoot, right? Or as Sam Hyde says, worry about those women and the tasers, right? Taser, taser, taser! Guys, there's not a lot of competence or accountability that is needed for these kind of things. They just cycle the people through. The incompetence of the federal government is absolutely absurd because they hide it. Most government agencies do. Like I said, I worked for a little rinky-dinky sheriff's department. They did the same thing. Same thing if they liked you. If they didn't, they'd throw the book at you. But hey, I don't expect people to be moral leaders either, so this guy basically left his firearm out in the open a year prior to killing Ashley Babbitt and was still on duty and killed her, and she died for no reason. Literally. She's the only person that died that day by direct action or direct cause. The other people, health reasons, I think one was an overdose, right? The one person that was getting trampled, supposedly. And then the cop, we know, didn't die. But they keep saying it. They keep throwing it out there. They keep telling you, Officer Sicknick, he died. He died because of the Capitol riots. No, he didn't. He did not. And the medical examiner has proven that. An attorney for the family of the fatally shot Trump supporter Ashley Babbitt, notice that framing again. They could have just called her Ashley as the woman who was shot. They have to frame it as the Trump supporter. These are part of those linguistic tricks, of course, to demonize or obfuscate. Now, he's the author of this is obviously from elsewhere, not from the Deplorable Patriot. It says the attorney for the family of the fatally shot Trump supporter Ashley Babbitt detailed plans Monday to sue Capitol Police on behalf of the Babbitt family, arguing that the officer in question has not been charged for alleged use of excessive force because of the politics surrounding the case. That is 1,000% what this is about. And they don't care. I'm telling you right now, the feds do not care about this. This is nowhere on the radar of anybody except for the bureaucracy of the Capitol Police. Maybe the mayor. Maybe. Babbitt, 35, was unarmed when she was shot on January 6th by Capitol Police. I'm telling you right now that if I had done something like this at any point in time when I worked for the sheriff's department, I would be fired and potentially jailed. Because what he did was manslaughter, at the very least. At the most, it's second-degree murder. It's not premeditated, but at the most, it was second degree. He was not authorized to use lethal force in that situation. But again, I've never been through Capitol Police training. Maybe they just say, hey, just do what you want. I mean, how often do they actually have to do anything if you work inside the Capitol building? Like the reality is you go down to DC, guys, you go into all these federal buildings and they have Capitol Police there and they have firearms and they wand you and that's it. I went to the Native American Museum, I think, with my daughter. And I had like 2 pocket knives on me because I often have multiple weapons on me. And they're like, what are you going to do with this? It's 2 black ladies. Like, what are you going to do with this? You're going to ninja some people or something. And, blah, blah, blah. And I showed them my ID. And I was like, I'm with you. I'm one of the good guys, And they go, oh, okay. And they're like, well, shoot. I'm not going to pull my gun. If something happens, I'm going to call for you. Okay, man. I was at a gala with my wife for Accuracy in Media a while back. What's his name? Ben Carlson was there as a speaker, as well as James O'Keefe. And Ben Carson gave us a good speech and all and whatever. And then afterwards we went to a little cigar bar and hung out for a while. Not Ben, he wasn't there anymore, but, it was a good time. And on our way home or on our way back to the car, I parked in the federal building because it was the only available parking around the corner. And I had to come through and they wanted, and I talked to them and I was like, yeah, man, I used to work in a jail and blah, blah, blah. I was like, you guys ever have any issues here? And they're like, nah, like we don't do anything. And they were working the night shift too. So it was completely dead. The only people who were coming into that lobby was to go down into the basement where the parking garage was. And at the time, the guy he checked my car. It was even just to get into the parking garage because it was a federal building. Now, he didn't search it thoroughly. But, I have a hatchback and I have stuff back there. I always have survival gear because I'm geared that way. I always have tools and basic survival stuff and first aid kits and a shovel and things that I know that I might need or come in handy in a bad situation. And I've used those things before too. So they're practical. And, he kind of rummaged through my stuff and not a big deal, but this is what they do. So this guy was probably so pumped full of adrenaline that he just shot her because he's never experienced any sort of real violence or chaos in his life. Now, maybe he worked, a hard beat at some time or something. It's hard to say. But a lot of these folks in DC, that's what they do. They wand people. They control the flow of the crowd. There was another building once. I asked the guy, this was a white cop this time, and he was wanding us. It's one of the federal buildings, one of the museums. I didn't even know what it was. And I had a pocket knife. It was probably that same day. And he said, oh, no, it's fine. It's not too big. But there was a time before where we went down to go see the Constitution. I was in the Marine Corps then. And my unit went there to D.C. to go down to see I think we went to 8th and I. No. That was earlier. That was another time. Sorry. But we went down to look at the Constitution because my unit was in Southern Maryland. And I went in there. And back in those days, I used to carry a big old knife. I used to carry a big old 5-inch pocket knife, 5-inch blade. And I started talking to the gentleman who's security there. He said, oh, you can't have that in DC. That's illegal. I'm like, are you sure about that? He's like, I didn't know that. I'm sorry, man. I didn't know, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, yeah, no, it's illegal. I'm pretty sure it's, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I'm from Maryland, dude. It's not illegal. Oh, no, it's illegal in Maryland, too. So I had, we later on, I got home and talked to the sheriff's department. And nope, they looked up the statute. It's not illegal. In Maryland, the law is a pen knife. That is any knife that basically has any sort of locking device on it that can fold is legal. Now, in, I think, Baltimore and Frederick, Maryland, you're not supposed to have a knife over 3 inches. That's a city municipal ordinance. But again, like I said, that's what these folks do. They don't do much of anything else. So understand that. Understand they probably lack a lot of training. It's not like they're the Secret Service SWAT team or something like that. Those guys are trained very well. I know, because my unit used to train with them. Babbitt, 35, was unarmed when she was shot on January 6 by Capitol Police during the breach of the Capitol. She died of a gunshot wound to the left shoulder, according to the D.C. Medical Examiner's Office, which means that he must have hit an artery and she bled out like everyone does when they generally die from gunshot wounds. The Department of Justice announced earlier this month that the officer who fatally shot Babbitt will not be charged in her death. Attorney Terry Roberts told Newsmax on Monday that Babbitt has not received justice due to her politics of the case and her open support for former President Donald Trump. The attorney will be pushing a civil action on behalf of the family, alleging a violation of Babbitt's constitutional rights, he said. Unfortunately, this will probably happen in D.C., and they're not going to get a fair trial because the court system in D.C. is left. It's all left. I'm handling the civil action that will be filed. That's my role, Roberts said. The family and I were disappointed in the Department of Justice decision on this, but my role is really to bring a civil action and in that way the verdict vindicate her rights. And they probably will, if they do win or settle, they probably will pay out because this is nothing to the feds because they'll either just print the money or steal it from you. So what do they care if they pay this person out? The feds refuse to charge Mike Boyd, so the family is forced to seek justice on their own, and I hope they sue him personally as well as the department. Now that's what they should do. That might work. It's interesting that Mr. Boyd's lawyer, Mark Schammel, is also a Biden donor who represents Igor Danchenko, the primary subsource of the discredited Steele dossier on Trump. Isn't that interesting? That tells you all you need to know about this douche, right? Byrd should be hauled out of his hiding hole and forced to face the Babbitts in court. When progressive radical terrorists stormed into the state capitals of Iowa, Wisconsin, Georgia, none of them were shot. When radical left-wing mobs tried to break down the doors to SCOTUS while Brett Kavanaugh was sworn in, no one was shot. I'll give you one further. In Michigan, look at how the media framed the patriots there who showed up to the Capitol building. Not a lot of them, but they showed up with firearms, mad at their lockdowns and Gretchen Whitmer. And then the feds got involved and basically baited a group of idiot boog boys to go kidnap. Like, to my mind, the biggest reason why the right generally won't organize and do crazy stuff like that is because it's easy to find those things out. It's easy to discover. It's easy for someone to talk. It's easy for someone to accidentally narc. And we appreciate consequences. The left does not. The left doesn't appreciate consequences. If they did, they wouldn't try to inflate the money constantly. They wouldn't believe in communism. They wouldn't do the things that they do. They wouldn't believe in the hedonistic lifestyles that they live. They don't believe in consequences. They don't think they should exist, right? It's a fundamental difference between the left and the right. And that's why the left will go out and do these crazy things. And then when the consequences come, they cry like little babies most of the time. But we have such a corrupt system that they are released back out into the wild just to do it again. And it happens over and over again. And then people end up getting killed eventually. And that did happen the other year. I can't remember any case particularly off the top of my head, but it does happen. It happens all the time. And I could tell you, again, from my former professions, that it happened regularly where I had relationships with, that is inside the jail, with these inmates, knew them well, seen them come in over the years. They weren't that horrible. They didn't fight with us. They were pretty much respectful. And they in and out of jail, in and out of jail, in and out of jail, sometimes down in the state prison, whatever. And then they kill somebody. Could have stopped them long before that, but they didn't. The law did not. Antifa and BLM thugs riot, murder, burn, loot, and assault in Portland, Seattle, Minneapolis, and Brooklyn Center without the media calling them terrorists and demanding incarceration or death. But all you have to do is look at Taylor Hanson's Twitter page and see the vile comments these scumlords make with no consequence to understand the double standard they're dealing with. Oh, they know. They know. They just don't care. I don't know. For some reason, I can't get that in a new tab. So anyways, you guys can look at Taylor Hanson's page if you want. In America today, a black police officer shooting an unarmed white conservative woman seems to have a different criteria than a white cop shooting a drugged-up felon resisting arrest. When the narrative suits them, leftists transform into apologists for police, murder, and corruption of the cover-up. There's a two-tiered system of justice in America. One for Democrats and radical Marxists, and one for everyone else. And that is all you need to know, ladies and gentlemen. All you need to know about all of this. And I might have to check out this page a little bit more often. Good Lord, it's 6 o'clock. Been streaming for 3 hours. We're going to keep going. We got some Bastiat to read. I wanted to show you guys something, though, before that. First, let me go through some chat real quick. Remember, guys, if you can, please like, share, subscribe. Show me out somewhere, man. Put me in your Discords, your Reddits, your whatever. I don't know. Whatever forums or things you're in. Talk to your friends and family if they're like-minded. Help me grow, folks. Help me grow this channel. Get this word out. And I do try to go on the road less traveled sometimes. Because if you watch a lot of like YouTube media, independent creators, like I do, you see a lot of repeat stuff. So I try to avoid that. Now, sometimes I do repeat other people's stuff, but I only do that because I think the thing that's being repeated is important. And sometimes I believe I can add a different, a slightly different context to it or something. You know. So they did add the ring for effect, LOL. We're talking about that video I played earlier, yeah. FYI, Wes is going to be over at Yiz's channel at 4. Okay. Okay, cool. Well, hopefully he's doing well. Like I said, I don't know. I don't think he was, like, injured super bad. I just think it was, like, he got in a car accident, I think. And, you know, sometimes it takes a little bit to recover from stuff like that. Get sore, get beat up. Could have been something else. Might not have even been a car accident. I'd have to go look at the Discord. This was like a week or two ago I talked to him. So, but appreciate the update there, Holly. Like it's the scene from Saving Private Ryan where the mortar hits the guy and was dazed, except it's not. I think that was the security door that had been compromised, the door handle alarm. See, here's the thing, though. Where was the command? Get down, stay back, get down, show me your hands. Right? Like, even if we're just in a fist fight, and again, I don't advocate for this, guys. I try to remain a pacifist as much as I can. But even if it's just a fist fight, someone's coming up to me, and they're acting aggressive, it's like, dude, get away from me. You better get away right now. Where is the aggression, the warning? Right? It seems to me like he just went straight to lethal force and there was nothing else there. So officers who fired toward a crowd and their own backup, killing a young mother. I was watching Antifa streams on the 6th. They were loving it when the cops went after Trump supporters. And they were way harder. Tank and I went live that night. We were trying to find stuff. And, of course, I had Don on the next week, who was outside, never went inside, to his good fortune, I hope. But, yeah, the police looked far more aggressive than they ever were with Antifa. I would speculate that happened because they were told that these people were going to come in and do all these crazy things. I mean, the city is left. There's not a lot of conservatives in D.C., and if there are, they're political pundits and stuff. Or they work in the orgs, the think tanks, like the people I know. So, you know. I still can't believe there were 2 taser. Yeah. With almost identical transcripts. Yeah. Well, the one was from a few years back that kind of got buried. And then, or just last year before, and of course the recent one. To be fair, a good portion of security is the deterrence. Oh, well, of course, dude. I mean, that's my nearly 20 years of my life as security work. I can tell you that absolutely it's presence, but you need to train. But see, I'm one of those guys. I do that initially. I like being beat up and choked out. It's weird, but I, not in a sexual way either. But I'm just saying there's a male camaraderie. You're testing your own physicality. You're testing your mental resolve. There's a lot of stuff there that I really like about it, and your pain threshold. And I'm pretty pain tolerant, so to me, it's a very great character building exercise. Now, there were a lot of early, there are some early church writers that say that wrestling and those things are frivolous and shouldn't be done. I disagree. And we know from animal studies that children need that. It's part of their development. And that's part of the reason why. By the way, folks, we have people that are horrible movers. I kind of addressed this a little bit yesterday. But people don't play with their kids anymore. And they don't wrestle with them. They don't pick them up. They don't slam them down, man. My daughter, when she was 4 years old, she would walk up to me and go, let's play daddy fight. Whack! Just a beautiful vertical fist straight to my gut. Now, I could take it, but for a 4-year-old, man, she had a punch, dude. And that was her favorite thing. Favorite thing. She just run up to me. Let's play daddy fight. And just hit me right away. It's good for them. It tests their limits. It lets them explore things. It toughens them up mentally and physically. I think it was quite close to the collarbone in that case. Yes. I thought it was in the neck. That said shoulder, according to the medical examiner. But without getting into the medical terminology, maybe they misspoke with that because, different sections of your body in anatomy have very specific names, right? Discussing issues with the left issues, there's always the lack of self-responsibility, hence the hate for Peterson. Please strike the second mention of issues from the record. Good one, Holly. Good one. Yes. I'm glad I'm not the only one that is like half a retard when I'm in chats. So, but I have an excuse because I actually, I actually have a thing that my brain don't work like everyone else's. At least when it comes to deciphering coded messages and through pictures. All right, guys, I'm going to show you something, and then we'll read some Bastiat, as I said that I would. Sorry that I buried it 3 hours into the show, but hey, there it is. Like I said, I enjoy this. I enjoy this a lot. No one in my family wants to listen to me this much. I mean, come on. So this is just something that I think you all should be aware of. I advocate, obviously, for breakaway societies. You guys know this. Don is advocating for breakaway societies. Our friends Jeremy and Delaney on the Weekly Narrative advocate for breakaway societies. We're all talking in similar ways. We may not be talking exactly the same, but we're talking in similar ways. Don, as far as I know, has been chugging along pretty well with the pleb ranch. I don't know all the details. It's not like I talk to the guy that often. We're not besties or anything, even though I would consider him a friend. But yeah, this is a way for you to contact people. We are 22,087 individual working together to create more liberty in our communities. This is Freedom Cell Network. And I'll just play this little video and you guys will be able to understand what is going on here. Ooh, on PeerTube as well. You guys didn't know, I don't even know if I even put it in the description anymore, but I have a PeerTube account I've been using. It's a unfederated, that is open source sort of YouTube. It's you can go get servers all over the world. There's no censorship. So that was one of my original backups. Haven't been doing the backup thing, but I've been doing pretty good. I'm not really too concerned about YouTube yeeting me here, at least recently. Beginning of the year was a little more touch and go. All right, so here we go.
This is Derek Bros with the Conscious Resistance Network. Today I want to talk to you guys about freedom cells. Now, if you've paid attention to my work for the last year or so, you've probably heard me mention freedom cells in interviews or in my talks about agorism and counter-economics. And today I want to focus specifically on the concept and give you guys a better understanding of what I mean when I discuss freedom cells and how I believe it can be a useful tool for activism, for organizing, and for getting yourself to a more free place and to moving out of the matrix of statism and towards the agoras, the free world that we know is all possible. So a freedom cell in its simplest way can be described as a voluntary association, a network of 8 people plus or minus 1 or 2 people, so 5, 6 to 8 to 9 people, but ideally at 8 people who are coming together for a specific purpose of organizing and to accomplish goals. Some people might know freedom cells as a similar term, affinity group, which is also a group formed around a shared concern or a specific goal. But I do believe the idea, the concept of freedom cells is more unique towards getting off the grid and towards building community, where an affinity group can be, any individuals getting together for a shared purpose, regardless of what that purpose is. But I think freedom cell, when you take that concept, a cell of people, a network of people, freedom, and we extrapolate from there, we can see the direction that we're headed. I've also talked about this in the past with an interview I did with James Corbett called Counter Economics. This is what a real revolution looks like, and I'll post that in the links below the video. And I also talked about this with John Bush, who's an activist out of Austin, Texas. John is actually the one who came up with the term freedom cells and who shared it with me. There's 2 interviews of us talking about that I will put in the links below as well. And I advise you to check that out if you want to hear more about how John came into the concept.
All right, you guys can go check this out. Notice the tragedy and hope in the background of Kara Quickly's there. I know this because of James Corbett. Now, I don't end up watching the Corbett Report very often, but he does really great work, and it's somebody you should reference for sure. So freedom cells are a peer-to-peer group organizing themselves in a decentralized manner with the collective goal of asserting the sovereignty of group members through peaceful resistance and the creation of alternative institutions, meaning parallelism, as the NRX talks about. But this is a way for you to reach out to get with other like-minded people or to create a group, which perhaps I will do eventually for us, in which we can discuss things that is off the radar of big tech censorship. So there's donations, there's sign up, sign in, and there's a how-to. I'll go there real quick before I move on. And Dalhawk, I appreciate you commenting there on Don and the Pleb Ranch. I mean, I tell everybody, for me, I'm probably like 5 years out. We have some financial stuff that we have to take care of. We're having a baby right now. So, yeah, either way, I think there's time. You never know. I mean, honestly, things could reverse. Things could reverse really quickly. It is not unthinkable that there is a big reversal of things. Okay, there's 9 articles on using the site. Well, I'll get to that another time. But yeah, if we consider that historically, when things go a little bit too far, sometimes there is a pushback and a rollback of things. It is possible. People like Robert Barge are talking about this. They think it's so. I am more skeptical because all I've seen is the steady climb upward, and I believe that this is the nature of humanity. We're going to be fighting leftism for the rest of whatever the existence of humankind is, guys. It's just the way it goes. The pursuit of liberty is a pursuit in diligence. We must diligently and aggressively protect it. That doesn't mean aggressively, of course, by using force, but by holding up the works. Right? We don't want things to get gummed up, and we want to we do want things to get gummed up. We don't want things moving along forward. We want the gridlock, but we also want the repeals. We want the redactions, the taking away of things. Just like when Trump wrote an executive order, his policy was to get rid of two others, or if he put it, not an executive order, a regulation. If there was a regulation in his administration, then they got rid of two other regulations. That was their general rule. But for the most part, like many of you, I don't think that the federal government is quite savable. And the only way it would be is if, America would wake up, and people are waking up, but most of them aren't going to wake up until like 6 years from now when they're starving because of the hyperinflation. And that's sad. And it's going to be too late for them. There's going to be no time to prepare. And then things will get violent as people are rioting for food. And this is how we get an actual civil war going on, and balkanization and all those other things. That is if we're not all gulagged first. So, let's read a little Bastiat. I think tomorrow I'm going to start with this because I want to get through it. We are close to getting through it. But let's read some of the law. Oh, let me get my screen pulled up too. How about that? Yeah. This is why I need a producer, guys. A producer better than Tank. Anyways, here is Mobley on the subject of law and the legislature. In the passages preceding the one here quoted, Mobley has supposed the laws due to a neglect of security to be worn out. He continues to address the readers thusly. Under these circumstances, it is obvious that the springs of the government are slack. Give them a new tension, and the evil will be cured. Think less of punishing faults, and more of rewarding that which you need. In this manner, you will restore to your republic the vigor of youth, because free people have been ignorant of this procedure. They have lost their liberty. But if the evil has made such headway that extraordinary governmental procedures are unable to cure it, then resort to an extraordinary tribunal with considerable powers for a short time. The imagination of the citizens needs to be struck a hard blow. It says, in this manner, Mobley continues through 20 volumes. Wow. 20 volumes? Good Lord. And I don't know this author, guys. I'm just, I know Bastiat, of course, but I don't know who he's talking about. I don't know who this is. Under the influence of teaching like this, which stems from classical education, there came a time when everyone wished to place himself above mankind in order to arrange, organize, and regulate it on his own way. Now, I don't know that this stems from classical education. I think this stems from a lack of Christian principles. But we could make this argument because people tend to think, any sort of liberalism, that is in the way I speak of it, not the modern, colloquial term. But the way I speak of liberalism, the freedom of the people, this was pushed back on constantly. And we look into what socialists say today, what communists say, what Richard Spencer says, and they don't think that you have the right to that. So I wouldn't necessarily agree with Bastiat's framing here, but this is pretty crazy, this statement, because he's saying, not Bastiat, but Mobley, or whatever, it says that think less of punishing faults and more of rewarding that which you need. In this manner, you will restore your republic the vigor of youth, because free people have been ignorant of this procedure. They have lost their liberty. But if the evil has made such headway that ordinary governmental procedures are unable to cure it, then resort to an extraordinary tribunal and considerable powers for a short time, meaning allow the strong man to come up. This is what happens every time. Stalin, Hitler, Mao, Joe Biden. Allow the strong man come up to correct it. And this is often when you hear Tank talk about the Machiavellians, which I actually have on Kindle, so we might go through a little bit of that here in the future. This is what he's talking about. The political power and authority is not based in the law. It's based in the hands of those who are the ones dictating the law and carrying it out. And the people prop this up. Now, with this, tomorrow, I'm going to go through this probably in the beginning. I'm going to read to you an older paper from the 1500s or 1600s and about the question of why. Why do people allow this to happen? Why don't they stand up? So I'm really excited to read that to you all because I've never actually read it before, but I'm aware of the document. So, socialists want equality of wealth. Next, let us examine Condillac on his subject of the legislator and mankind. My lord, assume the character of Lycurgus or of Solon. These are ancient Greeks. Well, one is the Spartan king, and Solon was the lawgiver of Athens. And before you finish reading this essay, assume yourself by giving laws to some savages in America or Africa. Confine these nomads to fixed dwellings, teach them to tend flocks, attempt to develop their social consciousness that nature has planted in them. Force them to begin to practice the duties of humanity. Use punishment to cause sensual pleasures to become distasteful to them. Then you will see that every point of your legislation will cause these savages to lose a vice and gain a virtue. And this is no different than today. Today, we politicians think the same way. Oh, it's just a sin tax. Mayor Bloomberg. Oh yeah, we got to tax poor people because otherwise they're too stupid. They'll spend their money on stupid things. We have to tell them what they can spend their own God-given right, their money, their own labor. We have to tell them what to do with it. And if we don't tell them what to do with it, we have to tax them so they can't do stuff with it we don't want them to do. My Lord. And this stuff really does fire me up. It makes me very angry that people think like this because it's so evil. It's so gross to me. It is. All people have had laws, but few people have been happy. Why is this so? Because the legislators themselves have almost always been ignorant of the purpose of society, which is the uniting of families by a common interest. No, it is not. The purpose of society is to just perpetuate society. It's to protect each other. It's to unify for protection, but not necessarily all families. This starts getting into that socialist type mindset, right? Where we're just collectivizing. The purpose of society is the division of labor. Those things. That's why societies come about. Impartiality in laws consists of two things: the establishing of equality in wealth and equality in dignity among the citizens. No, this is what Solon talked about. This is how old these ideas are. No, we don't need to balance these things. We need to let them be. The best way to do it is allow nature to take its course. That way no one is the arbiter of these things. No one is the judge and no one is the tyrant. We just let the natural course of things to happen. And that is based on responsibility and choice of your own and those other people. Now, can we have compassion on them if they mess up? Of course. Can we correct them in love? Of course. Can we help guide them with advice and leadership? Of course. That is not the same thing as molding them, though. As the laws establish greater equality, they become proportionately more precious to every citizen. When all men are equal in wealth and dignity, and then the laws leave no hope of distribution, this equality, how can men then be agitated by greed, ambition, dispensation, idleness, sloth, envy, hatred, or jealousy? Plato thought the same crap. You're not going to out-educate evil. You can't educate and basically provide and get rid of the problem of evil. There are some people that are just evil. And usually it's because they've had horrible lives or they weren't socialized well. But there are genetic factors and genetic markers to this as well, folks. There are certain genes that can dictate to you, if you do not get the proper nurturing, that you will be psychopathic in some ways. I mean, and potentially I have some of those genes. You know, I don't know. I've never done the genetic testing for it, but what I'm saying is that I know the difference between a wolf and a sheepdog, and of course I've spent most of my life, the little guy that I am, as a sheepdog. It is just built into me. It is my very nature. I do not like bullies. So, what do you do when you don't like bullies? Well, you fight them. You fight them and you make your life about that. And I no longer use violence with the conventional means. The only violence, as Justin Martyr once put it, that I use are my words. And, of course, that was a metaphor. Today, of course, words are violence, according to the left. Such sick, twisted individuals, I swear. What you have learned about the Republic of Sparta should enlighten you on this question. No other state has ever had laws more in accord with their order of nature or equality. If you learn about Sparta, folks, and I am a fan because I'm a fan of warrior culture. Samurai and Sparta are two of the greatest warrior cultures ever to exist in the world. The samurai, of course, being in Japan, and the Spartans of ancient Greece. You learn about that, you will see how strict they lived, though, how their military discipline was. They, in a way, lived the communist utopia, and it fell. It fell immediately. Now, I know communism would try to claim that it doesn't want to make war and whatever else, but of course it's going to make war because it has to spread across the world and people will resist it. Go read Mao's little red book and what he has to say about the people that resist, right? All of you reactionaries out there who don't want the future to come. The utopia of Marx and the SJWs and all the other wonderful things. They're just going to strip away all the families. Everyone's going to be in this communal good, and only the wisest of the wise will tell us how to live. God, I can't wait for that day. All right. And here, Bastiat is about to own some socialists. I'll put it that way. The era of socialist writer. Actually, it is not strange that during the 17th and 18th century, the human race was regarded as inert matter, ready to receive everything from face, energy, movement, life. From a great prince or a great legislator to a great genius. These centuries were nourished on the study of antiquity. All right. And they failed to learn the lessons of antiquity. And antiquity presents everywhere in Egypt, Persia, Greece, Rome, the spectacles of a few men molding mankind according to their whims, thanks to the prestige of force and of fraud. But this does not prove that this situation is desirable. It proves only that since men and society are capable of improvement, it is naturally to be expected that error, ignorance, despotism, slavery, and superstition, excuse me, guys, that came out of nowhere, superstition should be greatest towards the origins of history. The writers quoted above were not in error when they found ancient institutions to be such, but they were in error when they offered them for the admiration and imitation of future generations. As I always say, Marx was an idiot. He wanted everything to go backwards. Backwards. Every Marxist does. Go look at Hammer City right now, what that looks like, guys. It looks like Mos Eisley is on Tatooine in Star Wars, which, by the way, was built in Africa, because that's what it looks like. It looks like Africa and little African little huts. And if you hadn't heard about that, the whole Hammer City thing, I did kind of sort of bring it up, but apparently they were trespassing on property. They'd raised $65,000, which is not enough to buy acreage, really, guys, unless you're not in Colorado, not where land is expensive. And they were saying that they were purchasing 200 acres. Well, it turns out, nope, they were squatting, and they got arrested. So uncritical and childish conformist. Yes. Again, Bastiat, he's the man. This 50 pages or so, whatever this whole thing is, this pamphlet just could not be a better just focused summing up of my political philosophies. Uncritical and childish conformist. Did I not talk about this earlier in the Jinkos thing, right? They took for granted the grandeur, dignity, morality, and happiness of the artificial societies of the ancient world. They did not understand that knowledge appears and grows with the passage of time, and that in proportion to this growth of knowledge, might takes the side of right, and society regains possession of itself. What do I say all the time? Might makes right, might makes right, might makes right. That is the leftist position. This is why I don't advocate for fighting them directly as well, because you are just no better than. See, if you are going to be morally superior than your adversary, you cannot stoop to their level. And I know the arguments, guys, to use their tactics against them. I preach the same arguments. Using their tactics isn't necessarily stooping to their level. There are levels of this, right? Using their verbiage, their things. Like even if we decide to go cancel culture, and I don't like the idea of it, but I've talked about building societies and exiling people if we must. Because what we build is important, and we don't want people to tear it down and destroy it. And it is harder to build than it is to destroy. Entropy, the destruction of things, is the natural way. It is how it goes, right? Everything is going to fall apart and die eventually. It will decay without mending and tending to. So I had a thought and I lost it, but it came back. So last night I was talking to Osis, as I had mentioned several times. But who knows, who's in the stream right now. And we were talking about these these ideas that the laws establish greater equality, all that stuff. And I might have lost my thought again now. I know I said something to him about this. Maybe it'll come back to me in a second. But there was a point I made to him, without me trying to have to bring up the Discord and find it, that was in line with what was just written there. In any case, whatever. What is liberty? Actually, what is the political struggle that we witness? It is the instinctive struggle of all people toward liberty. And what is this liberty, whose very name makes the heart beat faster and shakes the world? It is not the union of all liberties, liberty of consciousness, of education, of association, of press, of travel, of labor, of trade. In short, it is not liberty of freedom of every person to make full use of his faculties, so long as he does not harm other persons while doing so. He's positing this as questions, right? Rhetoricism, right? He's making a rhetorical question here. Is not liberty the destruction of all despotism, including, of course, legal despotism? Finally, is not liberty the restricting of the law only to the rational sphere of organizing the right of the individual to lawful, that is, self-defense and punishing injustice? And do you believe right now, many of you, given the political atmosphere right now, that you have a lawful right to self-defense? I'll tell you what, though, the McCloskeys, based, running for Senate now, man. Whatever the Papa McCloskey is with his old school AR, running for state senate now. Good on him. Still awaiting trial in their case as well. We'll see how it goes. People broke into their property, a fenced-in private property, and they're in trouble. Absolutely absurd. It must be admitted that the tendency of the human race towards liberty is largely thwarted, especially in France. That's why everyone hates the French. But Bastiat was a good Frenchman, and I like his political philosophies as well as de Tocqueville. This is greatly due to the fatal desire learned from the teachings of antiquity that our writers on public affairs have in common. They desire to set themselves above mankind in order to arrange, organize, and regulate in accordance to their fancy. Philanthropic tyranny. While society is struggling towards liberty, these famous men who put themselves at its head are filled with the spirit of the 17th and 18th centuries. They think only of subjecting mankind to the philanthropic tyranny of their own social inventions. Like Rousseau, they desire to force mankind docilely to bear this yoke of the public welfare that they have dreamed up in their own imaginations. Right. And it's like them wanting to be God kings. And this is exactly how Joe Biden thinks right now. I'm telling you, it is so evident. He thinks his ego is insane, man. He thinks he's the man. And instead of, he could potentially be a really good president, could potentially, but instead all the leftists are running the show. And people are really surprised because everyone was saying, oh no, Joe Biden's a moderate. He's just a moderate Democrat. He's going to get us back to normal. He's been the most progressive president we've had in modern history. I couldn't imagine anyone more progressive other than Obama but Obama couldn't get a lot done, mind you, or maybe LBJ or FDR. I mean, just how it is. And progressive is regressive, right? We're not progressing anywhere. We're going backwards, guys. We're going back to the Dark Ages. I played that Jolly Heretic video yesterday. What was he telling you? We're going back to the Dark Ages, folks. Rousseau then desired to force mankind docilely to bear this yoke of the public welfare that they have dreamed up in their own imaginations. This was especially true in 1789. No sooner was the old regime destroyed than society was subjected to still other artificial arrangements, always starting from the same point and omnipotence of the law. Listen to the ideas of these few of the writers and politicians during this period. So, Saint-Just, the legislator, commands the future. What? He commands the future? Now, I don't know if you recall when I read to you guys Washington's farewell address, but does this sound anything like what George Washington was talking about? George Washington talked to the entire public, the entire people of the United States in that address. It is for him to will the good of mankind. It is for him to make men what he wills them to be. The hubris of this, and nearly, actually, I dare say it, the blasphemy of this, because what he's claiming is the legislature is God. Blasphemy, guys, if you aren't aware, is a very specific sin, and it is claiming to be God or have the powers of God directly. This is why when the Jews accused Jesus of blasphemy when he healed and forgave sins, when he healed people and forgave their sins, because only God may forgive your sins. This is also why I am, even though I don't subscribe to any church group per se, I am against the papacy, because the Pope calls himself the vicar of Christ. That is the living representation of Christ on earth, which is blasphemous, folks. He's claiming to be Jesus Christ, the Son of God, here today. I have no respect for that. And I know some of you, like Shelley, are Catholic. And that's fine. You can have a relationship with God and whatever. But that organization is one of evil. Robespierre, the function of government. And again, I preface that. There are good people in the Catholic Church. There are good priests. They're But again, the institution is what I'm talking about. The top down, how it's functioned over the centuries, and what it's taught, and how it's distorted things as well. The function of government is to direct the physical and moral powers of the nation towards the end for which the Commonwealth has come to begin. That is Robespierre, the famous Robespierre of the French Revolution. The function of government is to direct the physical and moral powers of the nation toward the end for which the Commonwealth has come into being. This is the same thing Richard Spencer says, and it's the same thing that leftist progressives say. Baldu Veneres, I don't know how to, French, right? A people who are to be returned to liberty must be formed anew. Okay? A strong force and a vigorous action are necessary to destroy old prejudices. Sound familiar? to change old customs, to correct depraved affections, to restrict superfluous wants, and to destroy ingrained vices. It's the same thing that we just read above. Citizens, the inflexible austerity of Lycurgus creates the firm foundation of the Spartan Republic. And like I said, it has to be tyranny. Has to be tyranny. If you want to mold people, you have to create a tyranny. Look, I was in the military, guys. How do you think the military operates? You think if I told somebody, as an NCO, if I told somebody to go do something, they didn't do it, that I was not going to smoke the crap out of them afterwards? And I'm mean. I make them go get saws and do rifle PT. So, not much of a yeller. I think I chew butts like twice, like loud, aggressive. But otherwise, not much of a yeller. I'll just make you do something stupid. Waste your time, and, you'll get strong in the process of it. But the point is, though, that's tyrannical. It really is. It's authoritarian. But that's how you maintain that rank structure, man. That's how you maintain that respect to young guys, especially when you're, once again, when I was in the Marine Corps, guys, I was like 132 pounds. It wasn't until I got in the kettlebells I started putting on some real muscle mass. I went into boot camp at 119 pounds. I came out at 132. I remember one of my friends, Becky, I hadn't seen in a long time, saw me a year or two after I'd been in, and she's like, "Whoa, you got big." Well, yeah, 15 pounds of weight looks big, but no, I did not get big. The weak and trusted character of Solon plunged Athens into slavery. Listen to this. This parallel embraces the whole science of government. The weak and trusted character of Solon plunged Athens into slavery. Okay, so this is that double speak. They were doing it before it was identified today, folks. La Pelletier, I guess, considered the extent of human degradation. I am convinced that it is necessary to effect a total regeneration and, if I may so express myself, of creating a new people. Now, all of this, my friends, sounds exactly like what Mao has said, what Stalin has said, and what Hitler has said. It sounds exactly like what Mussolini says in his doctrines of fascism. But please tell me how fascism is a right-wing ideology. Please. The socialists want dictatorship. Nuh-uh. Again, it is claimed that persons are nothing but raw material. It is not for them to will their own improvement. By the way, folks, they want the strong man to come up and then relinquish power. And people are so dumb that they believe that a strong man or a government will relinquish power. Marx actually wrote about this in his writings, that the government would get big, that the state must be big and totalitarian, and then once everyone was equal, then it would just vanish off into the sunset, I guess. That, my friends, is a fundamental lack of the nature of humanity and of the corruption of power. You build a totalitarian government, it will never give its power away. It will only be taken or destroyed by the citizens. What did we see with the fall of Russia in that video we watched earlier? We saw that the citizens got educated. There were economic hardships in Russia. The citizens got educated. And as that happened, and they allowed their people to be a little bit freer and freer, the government just fell apart. And the people did it peacefully. They'd already had enough suffering over the past century prior, through all of their famines, through all of their regime changes, through all of the purges, through the Holodomor and everything else. The people were tired. Through the KGB making people disappear, through the constant hiding and raids of people, for the Orthodox Christians having to worship in secret for decades, for generations, because religion was illegal. Again, it is claimed that persons are nothing but raw material. It is not for them to will their own improvement. They are incapable of it. According to St. Just, only the legislator is capable of doing this. By the way, folks, I brought up that Russian part because I know we just watched that. That is a rare occurrence, though, right? Usually it's hardcore revolution turning things over. But the Russian people had been through so much for so long. According to St. Just, only the legislator is capable of doing this. Persons are merely to be what the legislator wills them to be. Again, these folks are blasphemous. They think they're gods. According to Robespierre, who copies Rousseau literally, the legislator begins by decreeing the end for which the Commonwealth has come into being. Once this is determined, the government has only a direct and physical and moral force of the nation toward that end. Meanwhile, the inhabitants of the nation are to remain completely passive, and according to the teachings of Bonaparte, the people should have no prejudices, no affections, and no desire except those authorized by the legislature. Wait till Neuralink comes, guys. Hey, but you know what? This will be in my book, so you can buy that when it's out at the end of the year, when I'm done with it. Anyways, he even goes so far as to say that the inflexible austerity of one man is the foundation of the republic. In the case where the alleged evil is so great that ordinary governmental procedures cannot cure it, Malby recommends the dictatorship to promote virtue. No joke. Resort, he said, to the extraordinary tribunal with considerable powers for a short time. Yep, and I read that earlier up there. The imagination of the citizens needs to be struck a hard blow. What do you think critical race theory is about, guys? What do you think it's about? It's about restructuring society, and we're going to do it from the top down. This is why they hated Donald Trump. He's not all about this. He's not perfect either. Don't get me wrong. I'd have voted for him the first time if he would have been my real choice, but I wanted to give him a chance, and so as president, and he started to impress me early on, aside from all the stuff that other people got distracted with that was fake news. I know how to sort through that, though. The imagination of the citizens needs to be struck a hard blow. This doctrine has not been forgotten. Listen to Robespierre. The principle of the Republican government is virtue. No. And the means required to establish virtue is terror. Do you understand this? Do you understand critical race theory now? Do you understand BLM? Do you understand Antifa? I don't need to read the rest of this. Now, maybe I just did a deepity. Since we were talking about this earlier, maybe I just did a deepity. But I would say that that's not a deepity, that's an axiom. So an axiom is a statement based on first principles. It gets it down to the simple truth of things. And according to Robespierre, the principle of a republican government is virtue, and that means required to establish virtue is terror. In our country, we desire to substitute morality for selfishness, honesty for honor, and principles for customs, duties for manners, the empire of reason for the tyranny of fashion. This is some doublespeak too here, right? Contempt of vice for contempt of poverty, pride for insolence, greatness of the soul for vanity, love of glory for love of money, good people for good companions, merit for intrigue, genius for wit, truth for glitter, the charm of happiness for the boredom of pleasure, the greatness of man for the littleness of the great, a generous, strong, happy people for a good-natured, frivolous, degraded people. In short, we desire to substitute all the virtues and miracles of a republic for all the vices and absurdities of a monarchy. Yeah, well, sure. But again, I could change very little of that and fit that into Giovanni Gentili and Benito Mussolini's doctrines of fascism. 100%. That is the great Robespierre of the French Revolution. All right. let's see. It's 6:55. So let's leave it there. We'll get to dictatorial arrogance at another time. Let me read some chat before I get out of here because it's almost 7 o'clock, which is awesome, guys. Thank you for staying here. I know I've dropped a lot of people because, other shows are on and stuff. And you can always come back and watch, so please do that. Let me make sure DLive's good. And Entropy. Oh, I got a watcher over in Entropy, huh? Cool. Well, guys, if you would like, obviously you can donate, you can tip, whatever you want to call it, through Entropy or DLive. Those links are in the description if you're not over there on the YouTube. And please, more than anything, share me out, show me out, help people come over here, help me grow the channel. So I got really far behind here. Oh, not too bad, not too bad. Okay, Sam says, IIRC, when the average numbers of the public spending is more than 40%, of their income on food, chances are very high there will be civil war. Absolutely, absolutely. Something given has no value. Absolutely, Matt. You have to earn your way. Otherwise, you don't take care of it. This is also part of the tragedy of the commons. This is why I disagree somewhat about the utopian Star Trek universe with the magic replicator box. People would still be capable of wrong, and the writers acknowledge that often in the franchise. Yeah, of course, of course. Silence is also violence. Yes, I know. Dollhawk, of course. Everything is violence. Everything that's not leftism. Leftism, burning things to the ground. That's not violence. That's peace. See, that's the double speak, right? Or the double think is what Orwell talked about. But that is the example, as we were saying earlier. I honestly did not know that people talked about euphemisms as double think. That's not what I got from 1984, but sure. The tongue of men is long and winding. Yeah, wicked. Yeah. Oh, go read James. Go see what James has to say about bridling your tongue, that is, to hold it back. And how very few men can do such a thing. Build back better people are destroying. They're not building a reversal of language. Right. No, you're right. Again, like I always tell you guys, they tell you what they're going to do. They state it openly. Most of you miss it. Or you don't understand the code. It's funny. I don't like to play the dog whistle game, but there is a code that they're speaking because they have their own, they're in their in-group, they have a jargon. Right? So we all know only leftists can hear right-wing dog whistles. And that term's nonsensical too. That comes back to the Lee Atwater article that is not proven that to be true because it was anonymous. And the idea that he talked about the Southern strategy. That's where the kind of where that goes back to. But actually, its true origins were in Australia, an Australia government, and had nothing to do with any of this stuff. And somehow it caught on because they like these buzzwords like dog whistle. That's just a racist dog whistle. You racist, you dog whistling. When Bill talks about breakaway society, he's actually talking about genocide. No, I'm talking about go living off in the woods with a small community. That's what I'm talking about, that rely on each other. I don't mince my words, guys. I speak plainly and clearly and honestly from my heart. So that's what it is. Wait, who, what? Saying what is terror? Saying doing that is terror is terror. Terrorization. The rest of the monarchy is simply that. It's more efficient. Don't waste the king's gold. Yeah, man. Although I don't agree with monarchy. So, but anyways, guys, it's 7 o'clock. So if you guys have any parting shots, please throw them my way now. Otherwise, I'm going to cut the stream and get a few things set up for tomorrow and try to enjoy my evening. So, again, we will wait out for a few seconds. Otherwise, thank you all for watching. Once again, this has been All Minus One. My name is Bill, of course, and I wish you all well. You all have a blessed evening. Night, guys.